And this is Gavel to Gavel, WCVW-TV's complete coverage of Richmond City Council. And good evening once again. I'm Dick Harmon. A little delayed start here tonight, and I'll try to explain. The only part we know is we were in the middle of the informal meeting when all the alarms went off, and we had to evacuate the building. We don't know what that was all about. Hopefully we'll know something before the end of the night. But suffice it to say, the council is back. They're going to take about a 10 to 15-minute break to let everybody get a chance to get back in the building, and then we'll get started with tonight's Richmond City Council meeting, which this is the second time this has happened in the 25 years I've been here. Once we had a bomb scare. We don't know what the situation was this time, but all we know is we're back in here. We're ready to go. We've got 53 items on the agenda tonight, 47 consent items, 1 appointment, and 5 regular. We're going to try and go through these. We may be grouping some of them together because there's some that are companion papers. But let's get started with what's going on tonight. First off, we're also hoping to have Council Vice President Ellen Robertson with us. I don't know if she's going to be able to accommodate us or not, but we'll start with the agenda. If we have to break it in the middle, we'll just do that. Okay, here's item number 1. This is ordinance number 2013-112, a special use at 2623 East Broad. That's been continued till the 14th of October. Item 2, ordinance 2013-119. That's a special fund for which appropriations for affordable housing, education, rapid transit can be made. That's being continued till the 28th of October. Item 3, ordinance 2013-155, special use 1210 Huntland Road for a day nursery. That's been continued till our next meeting on October 14th. Now, 4, ordinance 2013-167, authorizes acquisition of 901 East Canal, 911 East Canal, etc., for the purpose of public parking. That one stays on consent, so there's item 5. Ordinance 2013-168. This accepts $20,000 from the University of Maryland. Appropriate the increase for funding an adult drug treatment court to establish a re-entry path for the adult drug treatment court participants transitioning from city jail to the community. Item 6 also stays on the consent. Ordinance 2013-169, and that renounces the right to receive payment of debt to the city of $18,875,000 plus interest of $15 million. This is associated with a parking facility at 901 East Canal Street. This would be the city basically taking over where Richmond Metropolitan Authority had run it. That stays on consent. Item 7. Ordinance 2013-172. This is accepting a donation of 86,601 linear feet of underground conduit for the purpose of upgrading the city's traffic signal system, and that's worth $519,000. That's going to be a gift to us. Stays on consent. So number 8. This expands the home visiting services to certain families enrolled in the Health Families Richmond program and Family Lifelines Parents as Teachers program. That stays on consent. Item number 9. Conveyance of 1722 Arlington Road. That is being continued till the 28th of October. Item 10. Ordinance 2013-176. That accepts $6.5 million from VDOT for the purpose of increasing estimated revenues and amounts. And this is going to do the revenue sharing program for various projects. That stays on consent. Ordinance number 11, ordinance 2013-177. This gives 25 parking spaces of a city-owned lot at 500 East Marshall to the federal government. Item number 12, ordinance 2013-178. that acquires a delinquent judicial sale, 1124 North 26th, and this is for the conveyance of such property for eliminating blight. Item 13, ordinance 2013-179. This accepts a grant in the amount of $2,537.25, transfers matching funds, and what this is all about, it's providing funding for emergency medical equipment, computer hardware, software, etc., for training for medical services to the city. Then items 14 through 20, they're all basically declaring a public necessity exists to authorize the CAO for on behalf of the city to acquire a tax delinquent judicial sale property and to authorize the conveyance of such to a Pernick LLC for the purposes of eliminating blight. Now these, we'll go through them very quickly. Item 14 is the property at 1207 North 26th Street. 15 is at 1209 North 26th. 16 is 1211 North 26th. 17 is 1302 North 31st. 18 is 1312 North 31st. 19 is 1312A North 31st. And 20 is 1316 North 31st. So we're trying to group those all together. Item 21, ordinance 2013-188. That paper has been withdrawn. Item 22, ordinance 2013-189. And this basically excludes from the demised premises certain real property. Item 23, ordinance 2013-190. And this is an agreement between the city and VDOT for the development and administration of certain revenue-sharing program projects. Item 24. This is a companion paper with an earlier item. This is authorizing the CAO to execute a programmatic project administration agreement between the city and VDOT for developing and administering certain revenue-sharing projects. So that one will stay on consent. That was originally going to be continued, but now it's going to be here tonight voted on. Item 25, ordinance 2013-192, that establishes a Career Technical Education Commission. Item 26, ordinance 2013-193, amends the pay plan to provide a living wage of $11.33 for employees in permanent full-time or part-time positions. Item 27, ordinance 2013-193, amends the pay plan. Excuse me, we did that one. Item 27, ordinance 2013-194, and that accepts $22,000 from FEMA and transfers $10,500 in matching funds, and that's for the purpose of procuring range-top fire suppressant units for installation in public housing developments in Richmond as identified as high risk of fire. 28, ordinance 2013-195, and this is for the purpose of administering the Arts and Cultural District Facade Improvement Program. 29, ordinance 2013-196. This adds the term brewery to the definition of food establishments for definitions relating to meals taxes. Item 30, resolution 2013-R145, changes the composition of the Urban Design Committee to add a member of the Urban Forestry Commission. Item 31, resolution 2013-R160, and this identifies public and private sources of funding for needed improvements to Kanawha Plaza Park. 32, resolution 2013-R167 approves the written program outline and budget with projected outcomes for the Chimborazo International Baccalaureate Program. Now, items 33 through 37 are providing funding for supporting a project to provide funding for. See, on 33, it's a Belvedere Street Gateway Phase 4 project. 34 is the Cannon Creek Greenway Connector project. 35 is for the Franklin and Main Street cycle track. 36 is the infrastructure improvements on streets adjacent to Mary Mumford and Weymouth Fox Elementary Schools. 37 is for the East Broad Street between North 16th and Interstate 95 for a hybrid beacon to be constructed. 38, this is the execution of an amendment to public utility bonds. This is for and on behalf of the city, provide for the form and details of the amendment of such bonds and supplemental indenture of trust. This will be to decrease cost of funds thereon. Item 39 and 40 are supporting projects for funding 1 to 39 to widen the sidewalk on the north side of Bank Street between 12th and 9th, and 40 supporting the project for the pedestrian bridge over I-95 ramps, the intersection of I-95 and East Broad Street. Then 41 through 44 are approving expenditures from council funds. 41 is from the 7th District for the 5 Chromebook computers for the East End Library. 42, $2,500 for the 7th District donation to Fan Free Clinic. 43, that's from the Council District funds for the 2nd District to play the Department of Information Technology for printing and mailing newsletters to 2nd District residents. 44, that approves $348 for funding for the Department of Parks, Recreation, Community Facilities to pay for staff costs associated with a showmobile rental for St. Elizabeth's Jazz Festival. 45 designates 541 North 2nd Street as a revitalization project. 46 designates the property known as 1 West Jackson Street as a revitalization area pursuant to Virginia Code, and 47 is going to be amended. That's requesting that the Chief Administrative Officer cause all city departments and other agencies to incorporate into their budget requests for the next fiscal year goals and initiatives. That's going to be amended, but it probably will be voted on tonight. 48, that's an appointment of Pierce Homer, member of the Board of Directors of Richmond Metropolitan Authority. Now, these papers, if anyone was planning on coming down for the CARE paratransit, those will not be heard. Item 49 is Ordinance 2013-141. That's amending, basically concerning bus fares for the purpose of increasing the CARE service fare, providing the CARE paratransit service will only be provided to the extent required by Americans with Disabilities Act. That paper has been stricken. Item 50, and that is concerning bus fares for the purpose of increasing the service fare and providing the CARE paratransit service not required by Americans with Disabilities Act, provided only from 6 a.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Friday. Such service shall not be provided on Saturday, Sunday, or holidays observed by GRTC. That's going to be amended and continued until our next meeting on October 14th. Item 51 is taking money, reappropriating unexpended CDBG grant funds of $1,232,500, relocating those funds for various projects. That one will stay on the regular agenda. Item 52 apparently is going to be, we had to interrupt the informal meeting when the alarms went off. Item 52, Ordinance 2013-161. That's providing real estate tax revenues from former school properties. The city has sold, be set aside for operation of school board of the city of Richmond. That one, they're recommending a continuance, but we have nothing official on that. And number 53, and that's concerning disposition of funds, the lease or other use of former school properties. That one is being continued as well. So that's the way the papers look tonight. Whew, we got through all 53 of them, I don't know if we could or not. But trying to give you a recap of what will and will not be and how many numbers, we don't know till we get started tonight. So let's go now to the citizens' comment period. We have 4 people signed up. One to speak on public transportation, one to talk about the new baseball stadium, one about funding for public schools, and one about bicycle safety. And then looking at the awards and presentations, what I have so far, memorial plaque honoring Richmond Fire or Police Department officers killed in the line of duty. One to Mr. Eldridge F. Coles, CEO of GRTC. One to Comcast Virginia. And that's a Community Service Award for providing on behalf of a temporary move of the Richmond Public Library. And I think that's going to be it for the President's Awards and presentations as well. Like I say, it's a little confusing because we were in the middle of the informal meeting when all of a sudden all the sirens went off, the beepers went off, and we had to evacuate the building. However, we are back and we are going to be ready to go. Now, I guess we're not going to be able to talk with Mrs. Robertson tonight, but possibly next time. However, if she gets here before they start the meeting, we may have a chance to speak with her. But in any event, we are here, and the Richmond City Council are ready to get to work here as soon as the council members all file back in. I'm Dick Harmon. Stay tuned.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is 9:22. I'm going to ask members of council to come join us on the dais so we can begin tonight's meeting. 6:22, not 9:22. Ladies and gentlemen, the vast majority of council is now sitting with us. Before we begin tonight's meeting, I have some sad news. The Richmond Police Department this afternoon announced the sudden passing of Detective Tucker. Detective Tucker was 45. He suffered a heart attack, according to the police posting on Facebook. He survived by his wife and 2 children. The police went on to say that Detective Tucker was a 16-year veteran of the department and most recently worked in the Youth and Family Crimes Unit. He received numerous awards and commendations throughout his career, highlighting his willingness to go above and beyond the call of duty. The police went on to say that Tucker was especially noted for his extensive career in narcotics investigation and his work with the gang unit. This just occurred. No funeral arrangements have been made yet. But I ask that we take a moment of silence for one who's willing to serve for our safety. Thank you. Apologize for starting late tonight. You know, it's not our standard operating procedure. However, there was a fire alarm here in City Hall. City Hall had to be evacuated, and so we are going to try to get back on track as quickly as possible. With that, I'll call the meeting of City Council to order at this point and ask that we all stand for the invocation to be given by Father Nicholas Bakalis of St. Constantine and Helen Greek Orthodox Cathedral, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
Gracious Lord, we thank you for allowing us to gather once again as representatives of our respective districts, but more importantly, as leaders of our venerable city. We realize that this is an important responsibility and therefore seek your guidance as we discuss and make decisions this evening and through our committee and future meetings. Help us to be cognizant of the needs of all of our citizens, being especially mindful of the needs of those in our midst who are less fortunate. Allow us to maintain the integrity of our office and be transparent with our deliberations. Bless our associates who work for the functioning of our council and all those who labor for our city and its citizens. Guide and bless us to this end, we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. The Chamber Emergency Evacuation Plan announcement and the Citizen Speaker guidelines will now be given by the clerk.
Upon activation of the emergency alarm systems, all persons shall immediately exit the building. Please use the exit to the left and right front of the council chamber or the east or west stairway outside the rear doors of the chamber. Do not use elevators or escalators. After exiting the building, proceed to the assembly area located in the parking lot, bordered by Clay 8th and 9th Streets. Citizens and employees shall assist visually and hearing impaired visitors with exiting the building. Citizen Speaker Guidelines. Citizen wishes to speak during public hearing and/or citizen comment period generally have 3 minutes to speak. Persons appear before council are not allowed to campaign for public office, promote private business venture, use language of a personal nature which insults or demean any person, include comments directed at public officials or staff members that are not related to their official duties. Address or question staff members directly. All questions are to be directed to the President of Council. Failure to adhere to the guidelines may result in speakers forfeiting the remaining time and future disciplinary action as necessary, which could include barring from attendance at future meetings of City Council for a period of 6 months.
Mr. President, for the record, all members of council are in attendance this evening. It's my understanding Councilor Trammell is in the adjacent room.
Wonderful. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Folks, just so you know, a couple of papers we anticipate being continued later on tonight while we encourage you to stay. If you have other things you'd like to do, please know that the thing that you came down here for tonight will not be heard. Those papers are going to be the caravan papers regarding the GRTC caravan. That paper is going to be continued until October 14th. So if you're here for that and you want to be somewhere else, please feel free. No action, no public comment will occur tonight on that paper. The other paper is what I affectionately call the Captain Buzzy SUP. That will not be heard tonight. It will be continued for a period of time till the next council meeting, which is in approximately 3 weeks. So if you're here to speak on that, please know there will not be a public comment period on that either, nor will that paper be discussed in any way. Again, we encourage you and welcome you and thank you for coming. However, there will not be a public comment opportunity on it tonight. Madam Clerk, would you please read the appointments and reappointments on tonight's agenda?
Yes, the appointment paper for tonight is item number 48, resolution number 2013-R179. And when I call your name, if you would please stand, to appoint the mayor's appointment of Pierce R. Homer. Is Mr. Homer present? As a member of the Board of Directors of the Richmond Metropolitan Authority for a term terminating June 30th, 2016, succeeding D. Michael Dickerson. That is the only appointment paper for consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Homer. It's great to see you. It's thrilled to know that you'll be working with the RMA. There's a gentleman in the back in a bow tie. If you would go see him after we take the vote, he'll swear you in. Are there those here tonight that wish to speak in opposition to the appointment of Mr. Homer? Are there those here tonight that wish to speak in favor of the appointment of Mr. Homer? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to council for any discussion. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Council is voting on item number 48, resolution number 2013-R179. Mr. Beliles?
Aye.
Ms. Graziano?
Aye.
Ms. Mosby?
Aye.
Vice President Robertson?
Aye.
Mr. Agelasto?
Aye.
Mr. Hilbert?
Aye.
Ms. Trammell?
Aye.
Ms. Newbill?
Aye.
President Samuels?
Aye.
That paper has been adopted.
Thank you. Mr. Homer, thank you again for your willingness to serve. Mr. Rawls is in the back there for you. At this point, may we please move on to awards and presentation?
Yes, the first recognition being presented by Stacy Rogers of the City of Richmond's Police Department. is to recognize, honor the City of Richmond's fallen officers killed in the line of duty.
Good evening. Hi, good evening. My name is Stacy Rogers, represent the Richmond Coalition Police, and I do work for the Richmond Police Department. Thank you, Mr. President and council members, for allowing me to come and present a memorial plaque to honor the 28 men that have given their lives in the service of the city of Richmond, dating back to 1869 to our most recent 10 years ago in 2003. There's already a memorial plaque to represent our brothers in red with the fire department, and this completes that, at least temporarily. And I appreciate being allowed to present this and have this displayed to honor the men in the city of Richmond. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Rogers, on behalf of the council and behalf on the city administration, I want to thank you for this plaque to serve in memory. I know at police training facility there's a portrait of every officer that's lost his life in the line of duty, and we appreciate having a memorial here at City Hall as well. I don't know if any other council members want to say anything in response, but Ms. Trammell, as Chair of Public Safety, undoubtedly does.
Stacy, I'd just like to say thank you for all that you do, and thank you for remembering the men and women from the police department, and also the men that have been killed in the line of duty, and our firefighters too, because we know that you all work good together. And back in the day, I don't think we all came together, but here it is, 2013, new day in Richmond, and I just want to say thank you all for all that you do, and thank you because you all sacrifice your life every single day when you walk out of that door. You never know when you're going to come home.
Thank you.
Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
The next recognition being presented by Vice President Ellen Robertson and Councilor Reva Trammell recognizes Eldridge F. Cole, CEO of the Greater Richmond Transit System, for his 46 years of dedication to public transportation. The Honorable Dwight C. Jones, Mayor of Richmond, and the honorable members of Richmond City Council hereby unite to recognize, honor, and celebrate Mr. Eldridge F. Cole, Chief Executive Officer of the Greater Richmond Transit System, for his 46 years of dedication to public service. A lifelong resident of Richmond, Mr. Coles began his career in public transportation with Richmond's public bus service in 1967. Due to his outstanding abilities, Mr. Cole earned progressive transportation positions and excelled, which included being promoted to Transportation Supervisor, Director of Training and Charter Services, Director of Scheduling, Chief Operating Officer, and his appointment to the Chief Executive Officer in 2010. An integral part of the Richmond community, GRTC Transit System is a nonprofit public service corporation that services the Richmond region as its primary public mass transit carrier. Created by Richmond City Council and incorporated on April 12, 1973, GRTC operates a vehicle fleet of more than 200 transit vehicles that provide an estimated 9 million passenger rides a year.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. 46 years in the public transit or mass transit field. Mr. Coles, is there a job at GRTC you haven't done?
I don't think it is.
Well, I'm thrilled to see you have your family here with us. Right. What a great honor it is for us to be able to thank you for serving your community in the world of mass transit. Regional mass transit is something in the greater Richmond region that we need, that we want to see, and that without people like you willing to dedicate their lives to making GRTC one of the best run transit systems in America, we'd be much further away than we are today. Thank you, sir, for your dedication and your service, and to your family here with you tonight. Thank you for your patience and letting him work all those hours to get to where he is today.
Thank you. Thank you, Charles. Mr. Coles, I'd like to say from the bottom of my heart, we're going to miss you. we are going to miss you. Not only the 8th District, but the whole city of Richmond. You have been there for us. You've given us your shoulder to cry on so many times. You've helped us with our Christmas run every year. And you just wouldn't believe all the seniors that, when they see that GRTC bus pulling up with Santa Claus, Mr. and Miss Santa Claus, and all of us singing, even though some of us can't sing. And just, we love you. We love you. And you know what, Mr. Coles, back in the day, 46 years with GRTC, and I know back in the day you probably said, Lord, is this all? But look at you now. Look at you now. I mean, it's going to take somebody mighty, mighty big to fill your shoes. That's all I can say. And I want to thank your family for giving you us. And said, so many people have called me and they said, this ain't really happening. I said, yeah, it is. But please, don't you forget us, because we're not going to let you forget us.
Never.
We need your home phone number, too.
I think you probably already have that.
Thank you, Mr. Coles, and God bless you and your family, and you're not going nowhere. We're going to make sure of that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. On behalf of all the members of Richmond City Council and the City of Richmond and all of those riders of the Greater Richmond Transit System, truly, you have been an icon to the City of Richmond in providing public transportation. And I want to thank you for the demeanor and the pleasant personality that you have always had.
Thank you.
Irregardless what I've called you for, and I know others have experienced the same, we were always met with a person of great compassion and a great desire to do everything we could to provide an excellent transportation system and to meet the needs of the citizens in the city of Richmond. And you've done a fabulous job at that. And I hope that this retirement is one that you take with a sense of pride, a sense of great accomplishment, a spirit of hopefully that the city will honor you in your retirement that is reflective of the dedication and the service that you provided to us. And I know there have been tough times when we've called and we've asked about budgets and so forth and so on, and you've worked miracles in a lot of ways in the transit system. And as Ms. Trammell said, yes, when you leave, you take a huge brain trust with you. And I want to say to you, the city needs that brain trust. And so, yes, we do want you to be engaged and to serve on critical committees that we need to, as we talk about expanding transit services in the city of Richmond. We want you to know that the brain trust that you have is so meaningful and so valuable for the city of Richmond that we still depend upon it. We want you to enjoy your retirement and have a great time. And I know your wife is going to love having you around more often and being able to do things that you have not been able to do. And thank you as well for your allowing your husband and your father to be a part of our lives. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I want to thank council. It's been a pleasure working with council over the years. As you said, it haven't always been easy, but we got it done. Just want to say that last month, GRTC celebrated 153 years of transit service in Richmond. It was not always GRTC, of course, but 153 years of moving the folks around the city of Richmond. If I don't introduce my wife, she's going to give me a hard time when I get home. This is my wife, Pauline. This is my daughter, Tanya. My brother-in-law back there with his sunglasses on, and my cousin sitting next to him. I also have the rest of my GRTC. You want to stand up, Louis? And give the GRTC people. the gentleman on the end there with the black shirt on, you. That is the chair of GRTC's Board of Directors. Again, I want to thank you, and I'll be around. Take care. Thank you, Mr. Amber.
Thank you so much. You're welcome. Bless you.
Is Ken Dye present? Ken Dye? That will conclude the presentation of tonight's awards.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next item on our agenda would be the regular agenda. I believe we have one paper on the regular agenda, correct? I'm sorry, it's agenda review and amendments.
That's correct.
Folks, I'm trying to jump ahead, seeing as we started late.
Amendments to tonight's agenda are as follows. Item 1, ordinance number 2013-112 will be continued to council October 14th meeting. Item 2, ordinance number 2013-119 will be continued to October 28th council meeting. Item 3, ordinance number 2013-155 will be continued to council October 14th meeting. Item 9, ordinance number 2013-175 will be continued to council October 28th meeting. Item 21, ordinance number 2013-188 has been withdrawn. Item 47, resolution number 2013-R186 will be amended and voted on later this evening. Item 49, ordinance number 2013-141 will be stricken. Item 50, ordinance number 2013-142 will be amended and continued later on this evening to October 14th. Item 52, ordinance number 2013-161 will be continued to October 28th council meeting. Item 53, ordinance number 2013-180 will be continued to October 28th council meeting. Those are all the amendments I have thus far.
Thank you. Council members, any additional amendments or corrections?
Mr. President,
Mr. Hilbert.
I'd like to see if we could delay an item or continue an item. I'm still waiting on some information here regarding the RMA transfer of the property, and I'd be happy to hear any reason why we need to go forward with this immediately, but it would seem to me that we don't have adequate information for which to make a decision. And I'm sorry, here I know.
Mr. Hilbert, you're referring to item 6, ordinance number 2013-169?
Right, I'm sorry. And
is it, you're waiting for the administration to provide you with some information?
these properties, this property is being purchased, excuse me, with leases that are in place, and I don't have information, not sure that it's readily available on leases that are in place, and I just want to make sure that that we're not purchasing this where we've got very long-term parking leases in place.
So you're talking about paper number 4?
No, I'm sorry. This is number 6. You had it.
Okay, number 6 is the forgiveness.
Sorry, I'm asking for both 4 and 6 to be
both 4 and 6.
Right, to be continued. And
all right.
In the absence of someone saying that this is an emergency, that we need to pass this evening, I think we ought to do the public business with full knowledge, and I don't believe that we do have that in place as we sit here this evening.
All right, Mr. Hilbert. Would the person who is from the administration that will address either Mr. Hilbert's concerns or explain why this needs to happen tonight please come forward to the microphone.
Councilman Samuels, members of council, I'm Sharon Judkins, DCAO for Finance and Administration. Of course, it would be our preference not to hold this. We do understand your concern. I understand you've already spoken to Lynn, and Lynn is giving you information on the leases, even to the extent that we're going to get them and renegotiate them within 12 months. But however, if council decides to hold this for 2 weeks, we will accept that.
All right.
I'm sorry, I just had, well, maybe I ought to just take a victory here and go home, but we'll ask questions about it later. But specifically, I'm looking for the term of these leases and the payment. I'm just very concerned. We'd expressed concerns about this situation, and it is what it is, and we're trying to do the best moving forward. I just don't want the city to be obligated on a long-term lease that's a bad deal for the city. And so, and I'm not asking for whoever owns that lease, but I am asking that the RMA make these concessions. And we've already discussed that in the informal meeting, so I won't drag that out anymore. But I would like for the city to not get stuck with a long-term lease that's below market. So just trying to, I understand that we are attempting to do that with the renegotiations, but in speaking with the city attorney's office, I'm not sure we had specific information as to who the leaseholders were and what the terms as in the payment were. And I'd just like that clarified, and I appreciate your willingness to get into that nitty-gritty in a couple of weeks. I appreciate your patience.
Ms. Graziano.
It's my Lynn Lancaster, Department of Public Works. It's my understanding that these are month-to-month leases.
Well, are we positive about that? Because I seem to recall a law firm or some large employer downtown getting a long-term lease on one of these decks. And I know that we've done that in the past with other parking decks, and appreciate that the employers need those parking spaces. But this has been a big contribution for the city as it is, and I just don't want the subsidy to continue without compensation from the RMA.
We'll ask the RMA for their individual leases and look at them and review them.
Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Hilbert, does that mean that you are happy with her response and that we should vote on this tonight? Or are you still wishing for a continuance till the October 14th council meeting?
I'm wishing for a continuance, and I heard that the administration was amenable to that.
Okay. Any objection from any council member?
No, I concur.
You, Mr. Agelasto, you agree? Very good. Mr. Attorney, we would just add this to the list of amendments and vote on it all at once. Madam Clerk, is that clear, and are you ready to call the question?
Yes, I've added item 4, which is going to be continued to October 14th, and item 6, which will be continued to October 14th.
Thank you. Please call the question.
Ms. Graziano, will you make that motion to amend the agenda as read?
So moved.
Mr. Biles?
Aye.
Ms. Graziano?
Aye.
Ms. Mosby? Aye. Vice President Robertson?
Aye.
Mr. Agelasto?
Aye.
Mr. Hilbert?
Aye.
Ms. Trammell?
Aye.
Ms. Newbill?
Aye.
President Samuel?
Aye.
The amended agenda is before you.
Thank you very much. Now may we please move on to the regular agenda.
The regular agenda for this evening consists of item number 51, which is ordinance number 2013-153. That's to amend ordinance number 2012-65-40 for the purpose of reappropriating unexpected CDBG funds in the total amount of $1,232,500 and reallocating funds for various projects.
Are there those in the audience tonight that wish to speak in opposition to this paper? Are there those in the audience tonight that wish to speak in support of this paper? I see some support coming down.
Opposition.
Hi, I'm Vaughn Garland. I'm actually appointed member to the UDC as of about a month ago, so I'm very happy to be here, and thank you for letting me talking. And I'm also a past commissioner for the Public Art Commission, so I've been around Richmond and city administration for some time. And I'm assuming this is also about the West 24th Street apartment complex, is that right?
Yeah, that's definitely part of this paper.
I wanted to give the City Council a kind of a heads up about some of the issues that we've been facing in the community since probably around March or so, and the impression that the Economic Development Committee or group is kind of telling you guys that the committee has a buy-in on this, and they've been very helpful with the community and the engagement there. And I kind of want to say that that's not true. To be honest, we've had 2 meetings with them. Both meetings, they basically told us as a community that they were going to do this no matter what, and we can kind of offer suggestions, and they would maybe think about those depending on the budget. And to be honest, I heard earlier on in our earlier meeting that the apartment actually design had changed. That's not really true. In fact, I actually asked the architect who was part of the second meeting we had how he changed the design outside of the color of the building, and he could not give me an answer. So the community itself of Woodland Heights is very much opposed to this as it is right now. We were really excited about the single-family homes that were going to go in, but even as of 3 weeks ago, that sign was still on 24th Street announcing single-family homes. So there's been some really miscommunication, a lot of information that we seek out from the Economic Development Group that they will not give to us. At the same time, they're basically telling us that they are going to be doing this no matter what for our community. And I think a couple of us can say that we are very much opposed to this, and I hope that you guys listen to the community, because for them, it's about building a building, and at the same time, they even told us that they were pushing Southside into this. Southside agreed that they were pushing them into this, and we have to live with that. I live on 25th Street, a block away from this. It's a very important thing for me. At the same time, and I'll end up with this, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that one section of that neighborhood. It's a gully.
You have 30 seconds.
There's a
Please begin to summarize.
There's a mobile home section right there that was flooded out. They want to put apartment complex on a failed apartment complex, and they want to use $750,000 that they've already used. And they want to add on to that, thinking that they might have to actually pay that back to the government anyway if they don't feel that. And the apartment complex before that was there completely failed. So please listen to the community. We do not want this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Good evening. My name is Charlie Schmidt. I moved into this neighborhood in 2006. I own a house on West 25th Street, so about a block over. I love this neighborhood. One of the things we love about it is the diversity. Although the speakers here tonight don't reflect the neighborhood, that's because we were kind of surprised. We didn't know that this funding shift was coming up. I feel like as a community, we've been surprised the entire time by economic development, by Southside community development, and even by the city. As Vaughn said, for 5 years, they had a sign up that said single-family homes were coming. We were very excited because these had been vacant lots. They had just been basically used as dumping grounds for gravel and all kinds of stuff. I know that economic development in Southside communities came forward and said, well, we have to change the plan. Now that we've got the easement, now that we've got all this land in place, we felt like as a community they did a bait and switch and decided to put in these apartments. I'm not personally opposed to apartments. I'm not opposed to rentals. As I said, the neighborhood is diverse. There's a good mix there's an apartment complex near there, there's rentals, there's single-family homes. Diversity is a wide range of seniors to new families to black, white, Latino, Asian, all those folks. I think what I'm most opposed to is the process. As a lawyer, I'm always wanting to dwell on the process, and I feel like that we weren't told the truth about this project, that we still don't have clarity as to why The city has already paid $750,000. The Economic Development freely admitted they paid $300,000 for a grouping of parcels. As best we can tell, that's $300,000 for 3 parcels. Land over there sells for about $5,000 to $20,000 a parcel. I don't know, the zoning on there may dictate that there's a little bit more. So, but we're not getting the answers as to why they're paying so much and why they need so much money for this project, and they're not coming to the community and telling us what's going on and what are the changes. Now they say that they can't build single-family homes because it's not economically viable, yet the single-family homes in that immediate area are selling. Realtor friends talk to me and say they want to see single-family homes in this price range from $100,000 to $150,000 because they're selling. So I would really, really push y'all to withdraw this paper so that I know that will cause problems for the other programs that are listed in there, but I would really, really urge you, there's no rush for any of this. I would really urge you to withdraw that
You have
paper.
30 seconds. Please begin to summarize.
Thanks. I would really ask you to withdraw that paper to reconsider this so that economic development has to come forward and say, here's our plan, here's what we're doing, here's what we did in the past. If we've made mistakes, we admit that. Let's all move together and let's try and come to a reasonable solution for our community and for the city and for the neighbors that live around there. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name is Lee Shoemake. I'm a resident of Woodland Heights. I'm also the president of the Civic Association there. I'm just here to support the residents. Everything that they have said, I think, is accurate. You all also should have received an email, and I believe Ms. Jones, Mr. Agalasto's liaison, also printed a copy and left it on your desk that outlines the position and where we've been with this. I'm not sure why the city assumed that this was that this was a section of the Swansboro neighborhood. That's what we were told on why we were never approached with this project. But in fact, our neighborhood boundaries haven't changed since 1887 when that neighborhood was officially platted and recorded. So we would appreciate a continuance at the very least on this issue. We have not had time to fully study it. We have just begun to register our opposition to a number of the issues revolving around this project, and we hope that you will give us that opportunity. Again, as one speaker has already said, there's no rush on anybody's part. There shouldn't be. And I certainly think, considering we just really got into this in June, was our first meeting. We don't have meetings over the summer. We're just getting ready to have our next meeting to even be able to take a vote on it. I hope that you'll consider giving us that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. I had previously asked if there are those in opposition, and so now I'll ask, are there any in favor? All right. Seeing none, bring it back to council for discussion. Madam, yes, Vice President Robertson.
I would hope that the administration would come forward and at least give us a full explanation of what this project is and what action has been taken thus far to engage the community in the discussion of this development and address the other questions and concerns that have been raised as it relates to promise of all single family, what is actually being built.
Can we dispense with protocol for a second?
Sure.
Okay. I'm Juanita Buster with the Department of Economic and Community Development, and I think of the folks here, I've had the longest bit of time with this project, so I'd like to give a little history. 2006, I believe, council approved the Swansboro Neighborhoods in Bloom area. This is a part of that neighborhood in Bloom area. I guess a couple of points, and I'll try to remember. Swansboro, Woodland Heights. We worked with Swansboro Preservation Civic Association. There are 4 civic associations in Swansboro, and they have representation on the Neighborhood in Bloom Partnership team. We were not aware that Woodland Heights was a part of this. When you look at the Civic Association boundaries that are on the website that are put there by the Civic Association, 3 parcels 3 parcels are a part of this. Our focus has been with the various Swansboro civic associations. We started out with homeownership. Neighborhoods in Bloom has a strong homeownership focus. We built out Pilkington Street. That's about 8 units. We built houses on Bainbridge. We started building houses on 22nd Street. And then we turned the corner and went to Perry Street, which is the outer edge of the NIB, the neighborhood in Bloom area. When we built, for those of you who are not familiar with this area, it's primarily industrial on 22nd Street. Then when you come up Perry Street, it's vacant land. And then when you turn on 24th Street, there are 3 houses on one side and an apartment complex on the other side. When we purchased the apartment building, the owner, who was in Fredericksburg, was getting ready to go into foreclosure due to some other properties near Fredericksburg. And he made an offer to Southside because he saw them working in the community. What we purchased were 3 blighted properties. The roof was caving in. We purchased a blighted house beside the apartment building. We took them all down. That's where the budget numbers are changing. We bought the 2400 block face of Perry Street and then the 3 parcels on 24th Street, some as a package. Need to back up a little bit. When the economy started to go south, we had houses sitting on 22nd Street that Sept. We had 3 lots that we wanted to build on, but we could tell the market was not ready. We did not want to build any more houses and have them sit. We put substantial subsidy into the houses that we built on Perry Street, across the street from this project, so that they would be sold. When we, at the same time, because of the economy and what was going on in DC, we got notice from HUD that we needed to speed up our development, and this was a nationwide notice. It was not just the city of Richmond. So we did an assessment to see what we could move forward. When we looked at what had happened around Perry Street and 24th Street, and the fact that the land was zoned for apartments, a portion of it, about half of the block is zoned for apartments, where we took the blighted buildings down, we thought that this would make a good location for us to do workforce housing. Again, to describe what's around it, it's challenging to say this is a good location for homeowners. When we first started Neighborhoods in Bloom, people were willing to be the pioneer. They were because they believed the market would continue to improve, housing would continue to improve. And because basically Neighborhoods in Bloom deals with blighted neighborhoods all over the city, 6 neighborhoods. That's not the case now. People want a bit more surety. In addition, the banks have changed their lending criteria. You cannot build speculative housing anymore. Build and sold, if possible, pre-sale. So we looked at, if we stayed with homeownership in this location with all its challenges, we probably would not build that out for 4 or 5 years. We don't have 4 or 5 years. In addition, we don't have the subsidy, the home ownership subsidy to build this out. I understand that this gets to be complex, and if you don't deal with it regularly, citizens hear it, but they're still not understanding. When we met with Woodland Heights for the first time, we tried to have this conversation, and it was new to them. I understand that. What I'm saying to you now, I actually said to them at that first meeting, but I also know you have to say it again and again for people who don't work in this business to fully grasp it. When we did the second meeting, we had filtered what we thought were the primary concerns we had heard from Woodland Heights. We went to the first meeting with 2 apartment buildings, with a passageway with parking in the back, apartments on the street, because we were trying to incorporate it into community. it was 50 units. And there were rents we wanted to try to have available for persons who do not earn more than $25,000. That was our goal, that was our target. So our rents were from $450 to $525. The community was concerned that there were too many units and the rents were too low. Okay, so we reduced the number of units from 50 to 36. We increased the rental rate to $575 to $800. We changed the design. We got rid of the block, one apartment block, and basically created 6 semi-attached units, 12 altogether, 3 bedroom. They're designed to look like houses, to be respectful of the historic designation that it abuts on 24th Street. That's what we heard from community. The 25-unit apartment building is closer to the industrial area. In fact, it abuts the industrial area. And the goal is to try to shield, strengthen the single family that's further up. What has been happening in Swansboro, Woodland Heights, is that the industrial is encroaching. You've got the car lots, you've got a few industrial buildings. So we were trying to create an edge to protect the home ownership. Because you can see it coming, because that's why there were several blighted vacant houses. So we're trying to deal with that. Not gonna go on much longer, sorry. But it was not about ignoring Woodland Heights. We were working with what we thought was the Swansboro community and with the former council person. Now we're working with Woodland Heights. I hear some of the comments. The rental is a key concern for some. But the way we talked about it in the meeting is we serve all the residents of the city of Richmond, some of whom cannot afford to be homeowners. We serve them all. These federal dollars are attached to what you approved called the consolidated plan. When you look at the statistics in the consolidated plan, our biggest need is rental housing for working families. That's our gap. And we are required by HUD to implement that consolidated plan. It is not just a piece of paper. So we did not insert apartments where there were none. We are trying to rebuild apartments where there were some. We did not insert apartments in the middle of the community. These apartments would be on the edge and would serve as protection for, we believe, a stronger edge for the Swansboro, Woodland Heights communities. Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Downey, any additional comments?
Yes, sure. And if anybody needs, I did, just as background during the intermediate time, I do have, what was there, what the plans are, if that's desired.
Yes, if you wouldn't mind, please provide that to the clerk. This started out with Ms. Robertson asking for basically just the administration to come down and say a few words about it so we could hear from you all. Are there questions now from council members? Seeing none?
President Samuels.
Mr. Agilasta.
Thank you. The property that has held up a larger conversation about $7 million, this 24th and Perry Street, this property is in the 5th District, and I recognize the longevity of the project. I recognize that there was a change in elected officials, one where you want to get neighbors involved, and I appreciate the work that the city staff have done as it relates to this. There's a few things that I would like to recommend to my colleagues here. we need more dialogue on this particular project. I think that the multifamily proposals still have not actually been presented back to the original Swansboro Civic Associations. I could be wrong, but I'm not sure that that members of the Swansboro community, such as Otis Mallory or Percy Minor, who were their respective presidents of civic associations, have seen the new proposal. So what I would request is that my colleagues allow this project to be deferred and have no expenses made on it. However, being that it's been presented to City Council as part of a much larger proposal, and it could hinder other projects, I'm afraid that we're not able to pull this out in an effective manner. I have consulted with members of council who've advised that I get members of the administration to work with me on an agreement to not expend any more dollars on this project until additional community conversations have been held. And I'm certainly open to that proposal, yet how do we do that in a form where we're essentially approving the expenditure of these dollars through the passage of this ordinance? What I would request, since this has all been relatively quick and we didn't have any downtime between the informal and the formal meeting, is that we delay this vote until later in this meeting so that I have a chance to go and discuss a proposal with members of the city administration.
Comments from other council members? Mr. Beliles.
I was made aware of this some time ago, and it's kind of a reminder of why you shouldn't watch laws and sausages being made. It's ugly. And there are a couple of, I'm looking at the boundary map here of Woodland Heights, and there are a couple, as Ms. Buster said, several parcels in Woodland Heights. If the timing of this funding is not absolutely critical, I think we owe it to the neighborhood to have a further discussion. We're talking about how this neighborhood is going to be impacted for decades, and 30 extra days I don't think is too much to ask. So the neighborhood can be heard and heard again. There seems to be a little bit of back and forth as to what actually occurred, and the best way to resolve that is to get everybody back at the table and meet back here in 30 days and say, what have you resolved? So I would move that. I would move not only that we delay it till the end of the meeting, that if we can delay it until October, till all the parties can get to the table, I would recommend that. I think it's fair to the neighborhood and it's fair to the process.
Thank you, Mr. Beliles. Any other comments? All right, Dr. Newbill?
Yes, I would concur with Mr. Agelesto's request. I certainly hear my colleague, Mr. Beliles, but I would concur with his request to have an opportunity to talk with the administration to see if there can be agreement such that there will be community conversations on this project before moving forward. I think there's some, certainly, as I've had a little more discussion about it, concerns that this is, well, I think it would be beneficial to have the community have an opportunity to have further discussion. And I think that it was sounding as if we could get there if Mr. Agelesto can talk with administration. We can delay till the latter part of the meeting. Okay. So I would be in favor of his recommendation.
A motion to lay on the table must be seconded, is not debatable, is not amendable, and requires a majority for its passage. And then we'd have to take another vote to basically pick up the paper at a later point during the meeting. I've also heard Mr. Beliles' motion for a 30-day continuance. I believe because we are already discussing the main motion, I have to take the motions in the order in which they were made. So I would have to take Mr. Agelasto's first, and then depending on that, we may take up yours and Mr. Blouse. Ms. Graziano, you look like you'd like to say something.
I just have a question. That is, I thought that when we discussed that earlier, due to advertising, probably this wouldn't come back to us till November, which would, I don't want to hold up these projects if we don't have to.
Right. Well, there's a federal requirement that we have to advertise it for 30 days, so we'd have to do that before we brought it back again. That would push it 30 days.
So we would be looking at least November, maybe later.
President Samuels.
Mr. Agelasto?
Thank you. I think that's if it's going to be amended, if there's any changes to it, but there's no reason that we couldn't delay this paper as it is and hold a vote at a later date. But if there were to be changes to what is presented, I think it would require that additional advertising.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find somebody who knows the regs in detail about advertising. I'll get somebody who can get the regs on it. I'm told if there's not a change, we don't have to re-advertise if there's not a change to it. I think that's what you're asking.
I think that was a point of clarification, yes. Thank you.
All right, any other comments? Seeing,
So, just for clarification, the motion that's before us is to delay action on this paper?
Mr. Agelasto has made a motion to lay the paper on the table until a time later in this meeting. It has not yet been properly seconded.
Second.
Vice President Robertson's properly seconded Mr. Agelasto's motion. Dr. Newbill, do you have a point of order or point of information?
No, I was feeling my comment was a second, but it was not proper.
I'm sorry.
So I'm fine.
Having been properly made and seconded, no debate on it. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Beliles?
Aye.
Ms. Graziano?
Aye.
Ms. Mosby?
Aye.
Vice President Robertson?
Aye.
Mr. Agelasto?
Aye.
Mr. Hilbert?
Aye.
Ms. Trammell?
Aye.
Ms. Newbill?
Aye.
President Samuels?
Aye.
That motion is passed.
Wonderful. All that means for right now is that that paper is now near us, but not in front of us. And that also ends the regular agenda for the time being. We will be coming back to this paper later on in the agenda. For now, may we please move on to the motions to amend and continue.
Yes, we have two motions. I'll start with item number 47, which is resolution number 2013-R186. That is to request that the CAO cause all city departments and other agencies to incorporate into their budget requests for FY 2014-15 goals and initiatives designed to support the recommendations of the Mayor's Anti-Poverty Commission as set forth in the Commission's report dated January 18th, 2013. The proposed amendment to that paper is as follows. Page 1, line 12, after the word bureaus, strike out the year 2011 and insert the year 2012. Page 1, line 13, after the text community survey, insert the text 1-year estimates. Page 1, line 14, after the word level, strike out the text for the time period between 2007 and 2011, and insert the text in 2012. Page 1, line 15, after the word to, strike out the percentage 10.7% and insert the percentage 11.7%. After the comma following the word population, strike out the percentage 6.1% and insert the percentage 6.8%. Page 1, line 16, after the word and, insert the percentage 10.2% and insert the percentage 10.1%. Page 1, line 19, after the word Richmond, strike out the text for the period between 2007 and 2011 and insert the text in 2012. After the word was, strike out the dollar amount $38,201 and insert the dollar amount $38,185. Page 1, line 20, after the word "was," strike out the dollar amount $63,302 and insert the dollar amount $61,744. Page 2, line 1, after the word "were," strike out the dollar amount $72,886 and insert the dollar amount $70,243. Page 2, line 2, at the beginning of the line, strike out the dollar amount $61,206 and insert the dollar amount $58,338. I will need a motion to accept the proposed amendment to that paper as follows. Councilor Graziano, will you please make that motion?
So moved.
Council is voting on Councilor Graziano's motion to accept the proposed amendment to that paper as read.
Vice President Robertson, you have a point of order?
Yes, I'd like to ask a question in regards to the amendment. Two questions. One is that as the patron of this paper, I want to make sure that I understand. I know previously when I've attempted to amend a patron's paper, I was under the impression that a separate amendment could be introduced, but not actually amendment to the paper itself. So I'm not sure of the point of order as it relates to that. The second thing that I want to state in regards to the amendments that are recommended, they're not amendments that I recommended to my paper. I think these amendments came from some other source. I don't know who is amending my paper, but that'd be nice to know. And likewise, the amendments that are being made, my understanding I have learned is that these amendments, in response to the most recent information that has been received regarding poverty and the level of poverty in the city of Richmond. And there, obviously, there, in this last source of information, which I don't have in front of me as to what the new source of poverty data is, that has come out. My understanding is that there will be an additional data that will be coming out as early as December that we would probably expect even some other minor changes in the level of poverty or the classification of groups of poverty that have been identified here in this paper. What I'm concerned about is that each time there is a new survey of data that is determined as to the percentage change, whether it is a fraction of a percent or it is more than a fraction of a percent, or is this a significant change. I respect the fact that we should always use the most recent data, and as much that this data can be, could change, it appears, depending on which source we're using on a frequent basis. At any one time, the current status could be different. My question is whether or not the paper needs to be amended to state the most recent, based on the most recent current statistics, rather than attempting to be sensitive to changes that may occur every 3-4 months.
Thank you, Vice President Robertson. It sounds like you weren't aware that changes were going to be made, or that you have not had an opportunity to have discussion with somebody who made changes to your paper.
I was informed that there had been a recommendation out of the committee that we change the statistics based on a more recent report, and I did get a copy of that data that was handed to me. But this is my first time actually seeing the revisions in the paper.
I've received word third hand that the councilperson who suggested these amendments has now sent word that they should be pulled and the paper should go forward as written.
Thank you. All right.
Madam Clerk, actually, let me go to Mr. Attorney. The motion has been made. Will we need to vote that down, or can we withdraw the motion?
The member who made the motion can withdraw it.
Ms. Graziano, would you like to withdraw your motion?
Yes, sir. I withdraw.
Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it. That paper will not be amended. The motion has been withdrawn. We'll move on to any other amendments, please.
So, question for order. We do have the original paper. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, Madam Clerk, now that that motion has withdrawn, that paper will move forward tonight, I assume, on the consent agenda. Mr. Attorney, I believe we are going to have a vote to put it back on the agenda, since our agenda motion was to amend and continue this paper.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. Madam Clerk, please help me remember to do that at the appropriate time. In the meantime, are there other papers that need to be amended and continued?
Yes, there is. There's also item number 50, which is ordinance number 2013-142, to amend the City Code Section 110-136 concerning the bus fares for the purpose of increasing the CARE service fare and providing that CARE paratransit service not required by the Americans with Disabilities Act will be provided only from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, and that such service shall not be provided on Saturday, Sunday, or holidays observed by the Greater Richmond Transit Company. The proposed amendment to that paper is as follows. Page 1, line 7, after the word "through," strike out the text "Friday," and that such service shall not be provided on Saturday. After the word "Sunday," strike out the text "or holidays observed by the Greater Richmond Transit Company." Page 2, line 8, after the word "care," insert a comma followed by the word "one way." Page 2, line 10, after the word "pair of section symbols," strike out the second pair of section symbols. Page 2, line 12, after the word "pair of section symbols," strike out the second pair of section symbols. Page 5, line 15, after the word "through," strike out the text "Friday," and such services shall not be provided on Saturday. Page 5, line 16, at the beginning of the line, strike out the phrase "or holidays observed by the Greater Richmond Transit Company," and insert the sentence "notwithstanding any other provisions of this section. To the contrary, a transit company operating buses pursuant to this article shall neither change nor collect any fare from qualified care riders who reside in the city of Richmond for transportation within the mandatory Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, 42 U.S.C. subsection 12101-12203, 2000, service area of the city of Richmond on fixed routes on which such transit company provides service. Page 5, line 22, after the section number 2, strike out the word "that this" and insert the word "this." After the word "effect," strike out the words "upon adoption" and insert the phrase "of January 5, 2014. I will need a motion to accept the proposed amendment to that paper as read and to continue that paper until Monday, October the 14th. Councilor Newbill, will you make that motion?
Madam Clerk, I would prefer someone else did. Thank you.
Councilor Belials, will you make that motion? Council is voting on Councilor Belials' motion to accept the amendment to that paper as read and to have that paper continued to Monday, October the 14th. Mr. Belials?
Aye.
Ms. Graziano?
Aye.
Ms. Mosby?
Aye.
Vice President Robertson? Mr. Agelasto? Mr. Hilbert?
Aye.
Ms. Trammell?
Aye.
Ms. Newbill?
Aye.
President Samuels?
Aye.
That amendment has been accepted, and that paper will be before you again on Monday, October the 14th. Those are all of the papers that I have at this point to be amended.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. I appreciate your patience as we worked through that. At this point, we'd like to have the citizen comment period. Would the clerk please call the list of speakers?
Yes, tonight's first speaker is Aaron Truesdale. Aaron Truesdale. Next is John Rowley.
Hello, my name is John Rowley. I live in the 4th District, South Richmond. Topic is baseball stadium location. I have a bias. I've been a fan since 1963 when we first went to the Parker Field and saw the Richmond Virginians. But this issue, I won't rehash everything that's gone down on this issue because it started in about 2004 when the question was whether to build a new stadium, and then, of course, along with that goes how to finance it. And while that debate was going on and nothing was really happening at the city of Richmond and surrounding counties, I'm speaking of Chesterfield and Henrico, who participated historically through the RMA in support of a stadium, those discussions got nowhere, and meanwhile, our AAA team, the Richmond Braves, left town, and we were left without a team. We brought a new AA team to town in 2000. I believe the first year was 2010, with a promise of a new ballpark within a couple of years, loosely written apparently. And they have held on while we have debated and deferred this matter over and over. And with the counties out now, the concern has become, financing has become the number one concern. There were, of course, there's other concerns of where to put a baseball stadium, but if you can't pay for it, that's a number one concern, and so the idea of locating it on the bottom has resurfaced as a viable idea because there you could have local businessmen investing and help paying for the new stadium, which we have not been able to get through city and county financing. That's a workable deal financially, but having a stadium at the bottom, these objections have been raised many times. Historically, you've got a neighborhood that was built in the 18 and 1900s, and before that, it also carries the significance of the Lumpkin Jail and the cemeterial grounds for slaves. And then architecturally, a new ballpark really doesn't fit in down there if you look at the...
You have 30 seconds. Please begin to summarize.
All right, well, this area has no parking, no accessibility from 95, 64, or 195. 6,600 fans on average attend a game. It's probably 2,000 places for people to park. There's nowhere to do that in Shockoe Bottom. And I, for one, wouldn't want to take my family down to a Friday or Saturday night game, get out after 10 o'clock, and walk into the Shockoe Bottom neighborhood, which has been noted for assaults, robberies, and murders.
Your time is up.
Would you like to summarize with one sentence, sir?
We want it at the boulevard. Listen to the citizens.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rawls. Mr. Rowley, sorry. Madam Clerk, would you please call the next speaker?
Next speaker is Roderick Bullock. Roderick Bullock.
Good evening, President Samuels, the Vice President Robinson, the rest of members of City Council. I'm coming on the behalf of last week. I was at the school board meeting, and they declined until our next school board meeting to decide about John Marshall football field. My concern was that was a golden opportunity, especially with the Redskins putting some of the bill. Ultimately, as I worked this summer at the Redskin camp, I saw a lot of great things that the city of Richmond had offered. And a lot of families had decided that they were going to come back during the Redskin camp and make it their vacation. Ultimately, I saw people come as far as Hawaii to charter a plane to come to Richmond. 164, I may add, to the Redskins training camp. I also saw a lot of families and friends and community come together. My thing is that I noticed that our council was going in on as far as the the revenue and vendors not getting the opportunity, Richmond vendors not getting the opportunity. Actually, the national vendors didn't make any money off it, and I think the public needs to know that. Ultimately, we was going home with Papa John's Pizza, also with Famous Dave's and Johnny Rockets. It's not a win-win situation for anybody because people had an opportunity to bring coolers in. So why, if you bringing your own food in, why would you need to pay for a vendor inside of the camp if you can bring your own food inside the training camp? That was not disclosed. My thing is that I think Richmond missed a lot of opportunities, especially when you're speaking negatively to things that you really didn't have the facts. And a lot of people were, especially ambassadors and guests, they saw that. They saw that in the newspaper. They saw it in the free press. They read that stuff. And they was like, well, this is a golden opportunity. We keep dropping the ball here, Richmond. City Council, School Board. This is our chance of a lifetime.
To summarize.
And Richmond and public schools and the school board need to come together as one and ultimately fix these facilities up. Last week, they said it takes $7 million to fix all of Richmond Public Schools facilities. John F. Kennedy football field was built in 1986, and it hasn't been refurbished or anything since 1986.
Your time is up. Thank you.
That's ultimately an issue that we really need to take a part of and really put, instead of building new schools, we need to take time and put money into our athletic facilities that we have now. TJ, they're doing a little something. John Marshall, the field is atrocious. Mr. Hilbert could attest to that. So, I mean, the city council really needs to stop bickering and stop taking when we have a great thing and embrace it. People came as far as Hawaii to come to this training camp, and then we have city council members talking negatively about their beloved team, the Redskins. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bullock. Next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Morgan Hafer. Hafer.
Good evening, Mr. President, fellow council members. Thank you for your time. I'm a resident of Richmond. I ride a bicycle for a living, been doing so for 17 years. And I, as much as you, want the 2015 experience to be the best that it can be. I also want Richmond to be a bike-friendly city for the residents who currently live here and bring the community together. And currently, as I see it and experience for myself, I have cars try and run me off the road, and when I call the police, I got to sit for 40 minutes and wait for a police officer to come take a report, which goes nowhere. If I'd call a police officer about having a gun pulled on me, we know that the police officer would arrive immediately and there would have been an arrest made, but that's not the case on a bicycle. We want people on bicycles, but the experience isn't equating out, and I'm hoping and asking that you seriously look at what's going on with the bicycle infrastructure at this moment, with the bicycle silhouettes, which don't translate to drivers. I mean, I had to pull over for a gentleman and have a conversation with him because I could see that he obviously didn't realize on Grove Avenue, where just above Mary Munford School is, they have the bike silhouettes. I'm on my bike. I have a 12-foot long cargo bike. It's very visible, and yet this man is riding up behind me as if I'm taking up the whole road. Our residents don't know the rules of the road here, so I mean, I really think that it's important that we get the word out on the rights of the road for cyclists and the respect of the road for cyclists, because this is a huge opportunity for Richmond to become a bike-friendly city. 350,000 Europeans coming to Richmond can have a good experience with the bikes and the cars here and the residents, or they can have a bad experience. And that bad experience, when they go home, they're going to tell their family and their friends. Either way, if they had a good experience, they're going to do the same. But the difference is if they go and have a good experience, all those people are going to come back to Richmond. And that's going to bring dollars for everybody. We can work out Henrico County, we can work out Chesterfield County, and make Richmond a more unique, family-friendly, recreational city, unlike any other on the East
You have 30
Coast.
seconds. Please begin to summarize.
Okay, well, essentially, bike safety. You know, if you and your family rode a bike and saw how we're treated, perhaps you would understand how I feel and many cyclists out here feel. And since we pay tax dollars for these infrastructures and these facilities, the least y'all can do is make sure that we get them there right.
Your time is up. Thank you.
Thank you. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you.
Mr. President, those are all of the speakers for this evening.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. May we please have the consent agenda?
The consent agenda items for this evening are as follows. Item 5, ordinance number 2013-168, to authorize the CAO to accept $20,000 from the University of Maryland for the purpose of establishing a reentry path for adult drug treatment court participant transitioning from the city jail to the community. Item 7, ordinance number 2013-172, to authorize the CAO to accept a donation of underground conduit system valued at approximately $519,606 for the purpose of upgrading the city traffic signal system and providing for communication and telecommunication needs. Item 8, ordinance number 2013-173, to authorize the CAO to execute a memorandum of understanding between the city and the Family Lifeline for the expanding home visiting services to certain families enrolled in the Healthy Families Richmond program and Family Lifeline's Parents to Teachers program. Item 10, ordinance number 2013-176, to authorize the CAO to accept $5,547,614 from the Virginia Department of Transportation for the purpose of appropriating funding received from VDOT's fiscal year 2014 revenue sharing program for various projects. Item 11, ordinance number 2013-177, to authorize the CAO to execute a lease for real property between the city and the government of the United States of America for the purpose of leasing 25 parking spaces at 500 East Marshall Street from October 1st, 2013 through September 30th, 2018. Item 12, ordinance number 2013-178, to declare that a public necessity exists and to authorize the CAO to acquire 1124 North 28th Street and to authorize the conveyance to Safari Zandigan for the purpose of eliminating blight. Item 13, ordinance number 2013-179, to authorize the CAO to accept $2,537.25 from the Virginia Department of Health Office and Emergency Medical Services for the purpose of providing funding for emergency medical equipment, computer software, hardware and software, mystique, and other training aid to provide emergency medical services to the city residents and visitors. Item 14, ordinance number 2013-181, to declare that a public necessity exists and to authorize the CAO to acquire 1207 North 26th Street and to authorize the conveyance to Pernick LLC for the purpose of eliminating blight. Item 15, ordinance number 2013-182, to declare that a public necessity exists and to authorize the CAO to acquire 1207 North 26th Street and to authorize the conveyance to Pernick LLC for the purpose of eliminating blight. Item 16, ordinance number 2013-183, to declare that a public necessity exists and to authorize the CAO to acquire 1211 North 26th Street and to authorize the conveyance to Pernick LLC, for the purpose of eliminating blight. Item 17, ordinance number 2013-184, to declare that a public necessity exists and to authorize the CAO to acquire 1302 North 31st Street and to authorize the conveyance to Pernick LLC for the purpose of eliminating blight. Item 18, ordinance number 2013-185, to declare that a public necessity exists and to authorize the CAO to acquire 1312 North 31st Street and to authorize the conveyance to Pernick LLC for the purpose of eliminating blight. Item 19, ordinance number 2013-186, to declare that a public necessity exists and to authorize the CAO to acquire 1312A North 31st Street and to authorize the conveyance to Pernick for the purpose of eliminating blight. Item 20, ordinance number 2013-187, to declare that a public necessity exists and to authorize the CAO to acquire 1316 North 31st Street and to authorize the conveyance to Pernick for the purpose of eliminating blight. Item 22, ordinance number 2013-189, to authorize the CAO to execute a third amendment to the controlled public access lease agreement between the city and Venture Richmond for the purpose of excluding from the demised premises certain real property. Item 23, ordinance number 2013-190, to authorize the CAO to execute a standard project administration agreement between the city and the Virginia Department of Transportation for the development and administration of certain revenue sharing program projects. Item 24, ordinance number 2013-191, to authorize the CAO to execute a programmatic project administration agreement between the city and the Department of Transportation for the development and administration of certain revenue sharing program projects. Item 25, ordinance number 2013-192, to amend Chapter 2, Article 5 of the City Code by adding a new Division 7 for the purpose of establishing a Career and Technical Education Commission. Item 26, ordinance number 2013-193, to amend the pay plan to provide a living wage of $11.33 for employees in permanent full-time and permanent and part-time positions. Item 27, ordinance number 2013-194, to authorize the CAO to accept $42,000 from the Federal Emergency Management Agency to transfer $10,500 in matching funds from FY 2014 general fund budget and to appropriate the total amount of $52,500 to the Department of Fire and Emergency Services for the purpose of procuring range-top fire suppressant unit for installation in public housing developments. Item 28, ordinance number 2013-195, to authorize the CAO to enter into a cooperation agreement between the city and the Economic Development Authority for the purpose of administering the Arts and Cultural District Facade Improvement Program. Item 29, ordinance number 2013-196, to amend City Code 98-361 for the purpose of adding the term brewery to the definition of food establishment. Item 30, resolution number 2013-R145, to declare a public necessity to amend City Code 114-1-940.3B and to initiate an amendment to the city zoning ordinance to change the composition of the Urban Design Committee to add a member of the Urban Forestry Commission. Item 31, resolution number 2013-R160, to request that the CAO identify public and private sources for funding for the needed improvement of Kiwanis Plaza Park, and that the mayor propose the necessary amendment to the capital improvement plan to establish a project simultaneously with the construction of the proposed Gateway Plaza Public Park Garage project. Item 32, resolution number 2013-R167, to approve the program outlined in budget for the Chimborazo International Baccalaureate Program, and to authorize $9,000 from the Innovation and Excellence in Education Special Fund to Richmond Public School Education Foundation, Inc. Item 33, resolution number 2013-R171, to support a project to provide funding for the Belvedere Street Gateway Phase 4 project and the city's application to the Virginia Department of Transportation for $280,000. Item 34, resolution number 2013-R172, to support a project to provide funding for the Cannon Creek Gateway Connector project and the city's application to the Virginia Department of Transportation for $320,000. Item 35, resolution number 2013-R173, to support a project to provide funding for the Franklin and Main Street cycle track and the city's application to the Virginia Department of Transportation for $240,000. Item 36, resolution number 2013-R174, to support a project to provide street infrastructure improvement to streets adjacent to Murray Munford and William Fox Elementary Schools and the city's application to the Virginia Department of Transportation for $320,000. Item 37, resolution number 2013-R175, to support a project to provide funding for the pedestrian hybrid beacon to be constructed on East Broad Street between North 16 and the Interstate 95 and the city's application to the Virginia Department of Transportation for $80,000. Item 38, resolution number 2013-176, to authorize the execution of an amendment to the Public Utility Revenue Bond and to authorize the Director of Finance to provide for the form and details of the amendment for such bonds and the supplemental indenture of truth. Item 39, resolution number 2013-R177, to support the project to provide funding to widen the sidewalk on the north side of Bank Street between 12th and 9th Streets, and the city's application to the Virginia Department of Transportation for $268,000. Item 40, resolution number 2013-R178, to support a project to provide funding for the pedestrian bridge over the I-95 ramp and the city's application to the Virginia Department of Transportation for $304,000. Item 41, resolution number 2013-R180, to approve $1,245 from the Council District Fund for the 7th District to the Enrich Foundation to provide 5 Chromebooks computer to the East End Library. Item 42, resolution number 2013-R181, to approve $2,500 from the Council District Fund for the 7th District through the Fan Free Clinic to support its Sisters Speak Camp program. Item 43, resolution number 2013-R182, to approve $1,548.56 from the Council District Fund for the 2nd District to pay for the printing and mailing of newsletters to 2nd District residents. Item 44, resolution number 2013-R183, to approve $348 from the Council District Fund for the 6th District to pay for staff costs associated with show mobile rental for the St. Elizabeth Jazz Festival. Item 45, resolution number 2013-R184, to designate 541 North 2nd Street as a revitalization area pursuant to Virginia Code 36-55.30.2. Item 46, resolution number 2013-R185, to designate 1 West Jackson Street as a revitalization pursuant to Virginia Code 36-55-30-2. And item 47, resolution number 2013-R186, to request that the CAO cause all city departments and other agencies to incorporate into their budget request for fiscal year 2015 goal and initiative designated to support the recommendation of the Mayor's Anti-Poverty Commission. President Samuels, do I need to have a motion to move this back to the consent first?
Yes, please.
All right.
So moved, Madam Clerk.
All right, Mr. Hilbert. Councilors voted on Mr. Hilbert's motion to return item 47 back to the consent agenda. Mr. Bliles?
Aye.
Ms. Graziano?
Aye.
Ms. Mosby? Vice President Robertson?
Aye.
Mr. Agilesto?
Aye.
Mr. Hilbert?
Aye.
Ms. Trammell? Aye. Ms. Newbill? Aye. President Samuel?
Aye.
That item has been returned to the consent agenda.
Thank you. Are there those here tonight that wish to speak? I'm sorry, have we voted on the entire consent agenda being before us now?
No, that was just to add item 47 back to the consent agenda.
So their next vote would be to,
Yeah, the consent agenda as read is before you.
thank you. Are there those here in the audience tonight that wish to speak in opposition to any of the papers on the consent agenda as read?
My name is Chris Dorsey. I want to just start by pointing out what was just stated right before I began speaking, that there are 47 items on tonight's consent agenda. It's 47 pieces of legislation that will be, well, some have been removed, but considered to be pushed through all at once. We'll start with 47. That is the mayor's so-called Anti-Poverty Commission, which is made up of representatives of the University of Richmond, Dominion Power, the Federal Reserve Bank, the Economic Development Authority, all the people who cause poverty, all the people who make the citizens of the city of Richmond live in poverty at rates that are obscene, I would say. And I'm not going to allow this council to get away with bringing the people down from the caravan who want to exercise their First Amendment rights another time and then turning them away without allowing them to confront you on the fact that you're going to raise their rates and cut services. That's a real classy move to fund the Redskins, fund the so-called Gateway Project, but leave the citizens who have special needs and who don't get proper service now without any service. And I will move on to Pernick LLC. Does anybody know anything about Pernick LLC? Because when I came to the land use meeting, I saw that they were, along with Elder Homes and some guy that people have a hard time pronouncing his name, so I'm not going to mess it up either. They're just giving away property. And so I looked up Pernick LLC, and really all I could find was that some Russian-sounding guy is the principal, and that they do lots of business and mostly associated with these, our tax dollars, you giving away, spending our money, a bunch of property to this company that seems very shady. And I'll say the whole thing is shady. Every time that you guys give away millions and millions of dollars, it's shady. And let's see, I think I saw something where there was lots and lots of money given away.
30 seconds, please begin to summarize.
Oh, thank you. It's a lot to cover because, again, there's 47 items on this consent agenda. Oh, here it is. $18 million. Wait a sec. To the Richmond Metropolitan Authority Downtown Expressway parking deck. hey, it's $18 million. I'm going to challenge you all again. Before you pass this consent agenda unanimously, I challenge any one of you to speak and show that you comprehend anything about what's on this consent agenda. Thank you very much for your time.
Next speaker, please.
Good evening. So if I may, prior to my 3 minutes starting, actually, if I could just have a very quick point of order about the sections I'm going to talk about relating to the city code. It's Article 6, meals taxes, and specifically Section 98-361.
I'm sorry, could you state your name for the record?
Yes, ma'am. Michael Gilbert. In Sections 98-361 and 98-364. Okay, I'm ready for my... Oh, I guess it is going. Basically, I'm speaking against actually the ordinance in item 29, 2013-196, because I think it actually creates a slippery slope and an unnecessary precedent. It's actually not too dissimilar than what was happening over the summer with, or I guess early last year with Henrico County and the panhandling so-called provisions, where there was this sort of loophole that since people weren't actually standing in the median, they were sitting, therefore they were allowed to panhandle, so they closed the loophole. Well, now technically I'm not sure if you're allowed to squat in the median. Maybe that's a new version of squatters' rights. But the point is that by trying to define all these little terms, you actually just create more holes than if you just say, for instance, panhandling is illegal. As this applies to item 29, the brewery part is actually completely unnecessary. If you actually read the code, in the definition of food, it says it means all food, beverages, or both, including alcoholic beverages. Okay, we know beer is food. If you say food establishment, it says it's any place in or from which food or food products are prepared, packaged, sold, or distributed in the city, including but not limited to. That means the list that is provided thereafter is not exhaustive. If you add brewery into that, then someone's going to say, well, you know what, my business is XYZ Widget Factory, it's this type of business, it's not in the list, therefore I'm exempt. It's completely unnecessary and redundant. If you do decide to change anything about the code, what you should actually change is the definition of a meal. Because although beer might be food, although a brewery is a food establishment, a meal is any prepared food or drink offered or held out for sale by a food establishment for the purpose of being consumed by any person to satisfy the appetite. I would argue that beer does not satisfy the appetite. And although it's food and although it's served by a food establishment, it's not a meal and therefore it's not subject to meals tax. So if you do decide to change anything of the code, I think let's keep it simple. And if you do amend it, amend the definition of meal. Now also, just to clarify, so I have about 40 seconds left, the exemptions are, and under exemptions number 3 and 4, so food sold in bulk is an exemption, which would mean anything that, say, for instance...
You have 30 seconds.
Thank you, ma'am. ...is intended not to be consumed on premise. So a keg, a mini keg, or a pony keg, half barrel, however you want to define it, those are all exempt. Okay, so not sure if you recognize that, but that's part of the brewery. And then the other part is alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages sold in factory sealed containers. That means any bottled beer that is sold on premise, any canned beer that's sold on premise is exempt. In fact, all you would be able to tax under the meals tax in the current city code is the beverages that are sold in pints. And even that is questionable because, again, it is not explicit that it's a meal. So I ask you, please, I speak against this. I think it should be withdrawn for further consideration and reworking. And please review the code with my comments. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. Any others to speak in favor of any items on tonight's consent agenda?
Good evening. My name is Max Buchanan. I'm the director of the Bike Walk RVA program for the sports backers. And I'm here to address 2 resolution numbers. The first is R173, which would support the pursuit of funding for the Main and Franklin Street cycle tracks. And I just want to let you all know that the sports backers are very supportive of this project. It offers the level of protection necessary to increase the safety and comfort of people on bikes and creates a really important connection through our downtown corridors. But the second project R172, the Cannon Creek Greenway Connector Project, also a very important connector between the North Side neighborhood, where there are lots of young families, and the Virginia Capitol Trail, which would be a very important and safe place for people to bike. We're supportive of pursuit of funding of this project as well. It's a step in the right direction, but there are long segments made up of sharrows, which are the shared lane markings, and sharrows don't offer a level of protection to keep people safe and comfortable. So while we support the pursuit of funding for this project, we'd like council to urge the city to seek out protected bicycle facilities like cycle tracks, like the Main and Franklin Street project that's planned, and the Floyd Avenue project that's planned. We only have a couple years before the 2015 World Cycling Championships are upon us, and that's only 2 years to build world-class facilities for a world-class event. So thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of any item on the consent agenda?
Good evening. My name is Brantley Tyndall. I'm the Executive Director for Ride Richmond. I'm here also in support of the same R172, 173 projects. It's a very good first step after last year's sort of expansion of the Sharrow amenities being put in throughout town. But I really have to concur with Max on that. Sharrows are really not the appropriate tool now. It should be bike lanes, separated bike lanes, cycle tracks, and other similar facilities, especially while trying to make bike facilities that are appropriate for all age ranges, all skill levels, and for creating really effective connective networks throughout the city. I think that Richmond City Council has a really powerful opportunity to make sure that bike facilities, as we move forward to 2015, really accommodate everyone in Richmond. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in favor to speak? And anyone else here that's a tongue twister, isn't it? Anyone here willing to speak in favor of any item on the consent agenda?
Good evening. My name is Breanne Mullen. I'm the Executive Director of Partnership for Smarter Growth, the only nonprofit organization in the region addressing regional issues of land use and transportation. Like the previous two commenters, I'd like to support items 34 and 35. I think these bike infrastructure improvements are a great start to becoming the world-class biking city that the world expects to see in 2015. I do, however, also want to caution about the extensive use of sharrows in the Cannon Creek project. Sharrows don't give bicyclists nor motorists the sense of safety as they share the road, so I would ask the council to consider this as this project moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is the last call. Anyone else? All right, if anybody wants to speak in favor of any item, please stand behind the gentleman with the bicycle helmet on.
Hi, I'm Morgan Hafer again. I also would like to support items 34 and 35. I think again, bike safety is something that's necessary. The sharrows, though, for people who live in Europe and live in major cities where the bike lane and education and awareness programs have coincided with the sharrows, I think that's one thing. But I think in Richmond, families taking themselves out and putting themselves on Grove Avenue or pretty much anywhere in the city that doesn't have a protective barrier is going to get somebody hurt. And I think that's going to reflect negatively on the city and the organizers of the 2015, which, again, 350,000 people can go home with a positive experience and bring more people back, and we can move Richmond to a much bigger and brighter progressive city than it currently is, or we can let Richmond, we can go along with that Confederate flag on 95 and hope that, some miracle is going to come along and bring that group to Richmond, which I really don't see that being a benefit, but that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Julie Ellen Sarver. I'm just a resident of Richmond. I hope you all got an opportunity to read the commentary section of the paper yesterday talking about bike lessons learned from Europe for Richmond. I'm speaking in support of the bicycle items 34 and 35 on the consent agenda. I received a unsolicited email just this evening from someone who read that article, and I just wanted to share what she said. She said, "I dream of the day when it's safe and easy enough to travel around Richmond by bike with small children in tow." Please keep that in mind as you consider these projects and really making them the best that they can be.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other folks who wish to report or comment one way or the other, we'll bring it back to council for any discussion on the consent agenda. Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the vote?
Council is voting on the consent agenda, which consists of item 5, 7 through 8, 10 through 20, 23 through 47. Mr. Bliles?
Aye.
Ms. Graziano?
Aye.
Ms. Mosby?
Aye.
Vice President Robertson?
Aye.
Mr. Agilesto?
Aye.
Mr. Hilbert?
Aye.
Ms. Trammell?
Aye.
Ms. Newbill?
Aye.
President Samuels?
Aye.
And for the record, Mr. Hilbert has completed a conflict of interest for item number 45 and 46, and the consent agenda has been adopted.
Thank you very much. Expedited resolutions, please.
There are no expedited resolutions for consideration this evening.
All right, well, let's go to, actually, I'll tell you what we'll do. If there were to be at this point in the meeting a motion to take a specific item from the table, that is certainly appropriate. But please remember, it must be seconded. It cannot be debatable. It is not amendable, and it simply requires a majority vote. Do I hear any motions to pick up any ordinance from the table? All right, I guess nobody wants to talk about Mr. Agilasto's issue.
Mr. President, I have a question on order. I guess if nobody picks it up from the table, then it's continued, or what happens to it? Mr. Attorney?
The paper would be continued to the next meeting then.
Yeah.
Point of clarity.
Yes, Dr. Newbill.
Just a point of clarification. I thought we agreed early on that there would be time for Councilman Agilesto to have conversation with administration. The paper would come back before us. Are we at something different? And I apologize if I
The only way to discuss whatever Mr. Agilasto has done during the meeting, though, once you lay a paper on the table, in order to discuss it again, you have to take it up off the table.
Right.
So basically, before we said, we're going to hold off on this, now I'm asking for a motion so that we can talk about it again.
So moved.
Second.
Wonderful. Properly made, properly seconded. Madam Clerk, can we call the roll?
Mr. Beliles?
No.
Ms. Graziano?
Aye.
Ms. Mosby?
Aye.
Vice President Robertson?
Aye.
Mr. Agilasto?
Aye. Aye.
Mr. Hilbert?
Aye.
Ms. Trammell? Aye. Ms. Newbill?
Aye.
President Samuels?
Aye.
The motion is passed.
Wonderful. And that paper is now back before us. Mr. Agilasto, how has your evening been?
We had a nice little meeting in the back. I think what I'd like to do is bring forth some city staff members, and I think there's going to be a motion on this paper, but what I'd like for at least Mr. Downey here to give us kind of an update and what we talked about in the room about a commitment to sit down with the neighborhoods again and have an additional presentation so that we can get closer to the same page.
Right. In the stated need for more information and an opportunity to hear from the public, we've agreed that, if these funds are allocated through this paper, that we will, and I believe we spoke about a week out, we're going to have a meeting with the group in the neighborhood to once again go through the plan for public input, and that's where we stand now. And what we will commit to is not expending these funds if they are approved or allocated, not expending any funds until we've had that chance for input. Is that?
So that the city won't obligate any dollars for the 24th Street and Perry project until there's been additional community engagement?
Right, and I believe we just spoke a moment ago about trying to set up a meeting a week out.
Trying to set up a meeting. Council President, I'm getting some signals from the Civic Association president who's maybe in disagreement, and since I was not party to their conversation, I'd like to hear what she has to say before I make a motion. Is that acceptable?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and suspend the rules so Ms. Shoemake can have a word here.
Hi. Sorry for the baseball, but Ms. Jones was out and said that, or led us to believe that what was actually going to be on the table was a 2-week continuance on the entire paper to give us time to meet so that we could perhaps have a little more productive conversation, whereby if they already have the money, our ability to be productive is a little less on our end. So that was our understanding. We're happy to meet with them, but we'd like to do so on an equal footing with the money still out of the picture.
Thank you, Ms. Shoemake.
Council President.
Mr. Agelesto.
I am in agreement with the 2-week continuance. This is something that we discussed a little bit about the challenge of approving an ordinance and then not having the ability to kind of assess when monies are being spent on a project that still needs some time for public engagement. And Ms. Judkins and I spoke briefly about that. I believe we are in agreement to do a 2-week continuance on this paper. Therefore, I'd like to make a motion to continue until our first meeting in October, which would be October the 14th.
All right. Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Mr. Blas, properly seconds. Dr. Newbill?
Are we at discussion?
We are at the discussion.
Okay, so I'm just wanting to be clear that there are other projects that are embodied in this paper, and I'm wanting to be absolutely clear about the implications for those projects with this delay.
Yes, there are other projects. Ms. Judkins or Mr. Downey can probably tell us the total amount of those projects. I believe it is somewhere near $7 million.
And while
I'm sorry, it's probably closer to 1.2 million. Is that correct, Mr. Downey?
We have
while they
1.2.
While they're coming forward, I want to be clear that I believe that there should be community conversation and engagement. So it's not about that and having the opportunity for this community to have a say in this project. So I'm absolutely in agreement with that. But I'm also wanting to be vigilant about the implications for the other projects that are part of this. And can we get that conversation without holding up those other projects at the same time is the question.
I believe that might be a question best answered for the city attorney. Once we approve the ordinance and the money has been allocated, I mean, city staff could potentially go and continue on the project as planned without necessarily going back to community dialogue.
Mr. City Attorney.
If council continues the paper, which is the motion that's on the table right now, no funds can be spent until such time as council approves or votes the paper down, but certainly not until council authorizes it. If council adopts the paper tonight, then all of the funds that are contained in the paper would be authorized to be spent. What you would have is a commitment from the administration. Despite being authorized to spend it, you would have their commitment not to spend it until such time as there's additional community involvement. I believe I've stated that correctly, at least in substance.
Right.
Mr. Downey, you want to say something? Vice President Robertson also wants to, if you don't mind, I'm going to let her.
My question, thank you, Mr. President. My question is that with the adoption of the paper tonight as is, with the understanding what administration will do specifically to this development and fathering the conversation and discussion with the community, if the outcome of those discussions with the community and the recommendation of the administration is changed, this paper will be adopted as it is. The process for an amendment to the adopted paper would be a request for a new paper to be introduced for an amendment to this particular development, and would that also requires a 30-day advertisement for that amendment? Thank you.
Ms. Graziano?
I just have a question, and that is, if we pass this paper tonight, just say, and then in community discussions, no resolution could be reached, can council introduce, or can only administration introduce a paper concerning that project?
Mr. Jackson?
Mr. Jackson?
This is not a budget paper as such, so it is not controlled by the charter provisions that permit only the mayor to introduce an amendment. But I'm not sure how that process would work because of all the public notice requirements that are involved. Normally, those things are handled by the administrative staff, and I'm not, frankly, I just don't know how it would work if council tried to amend it without administration involvement. It might work, but it might not.
There you have it, Ms. Graziano. Is that helpful? I believe lawyers like to say that it's called a depends. It depends on the facts at the time. Other comments from council members?
Mr. President.
Okay.
If you don't mind, Vice President Robertson.
Please.
Excuse me, Mr. President, Section 2 of the paper does contain a budget provision. It's part of a special fund budget, so it would require a proposal by the mayor to amend it.
So it would have to be a recommendation by the administration. Thank you. Dr. Newbill, Mr. Hilbert, you both look like you want to say something.
Well, I'm hearing that the administration is making a public declaration that they will have further public meetings about this. And that is a public declaration that no one would want to go against at any point in the future. So I think we're people of goodwill here. That's what they say that they are going to do. They're on the record. And so I believe that we ought to approve this in order to not delay the other recipients of this money. If the administration changes their mind on this, then that will be up to the citizens of Richmond and the public to decide whether they think that was a correct action. But I'm willing to go forward with this and to trust that we will indeed have these meetings and get feedback and go from there. And if that, God forbid, doesn't happen, then we'll take it up at that point. But I think it's unfair to delay these other projects by continuing this paper and causing a lot more cost to administrate this monies. Since I've been on council, this money has gone down from $11 million to $7 million. It's a shrinking pot. It's extremely valuable, and let's not hold up these funds for everybody else. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hilsbert. Mr. Hilbert.
Madam.
Vice President Roberts?
Mr. President, I'd like to I agree with Mr. Hilbert. I think that this paper certainly includes a lot of different organizations, and I would hope that the agreement that is made to work with the community will be honored, and I would support moving this paper forward tonight.
Thank you. Other comments from council members? Dr. Newbill?
Yes, similarly, I would concur. I don't want to hold the other projects up, but I do want to be clear that this community deserves an opportunity to have input, authentic input and engagement in this process. And so I am hearing that commitment is being made to do that. So,
That's correct.
okay, thank you.
All right. Any other comments before we call the question? Mr. Agelasto?
Yeah, since I'm the one who brought up this issue on this paper, I just very much humbly disagree with my colleagues on council who think that I'm the one holding up this paper. I mean, there was a significant lack of communication perpetrated by city staff. And I don't think it's fair to say to this elected body that we're holding up something because our city staff weren't working to communicate. You know, how often do we hear you rushed something? You didn't think it through clearly enough. There are implications that you didn't consider. And I strongly think that we need to take caution when we are spending public dollars. And I think asking a 2-week continuance on this paper so that the public can have an additional opportunity to sit down on a project that will dramatically change the landscape of their community. For feedback, for history, I just want to put on the record that I did not sit down with Southside Community Development Corporation to review this proposal until the end of April. The first opportunity that I was asking for city staff to engage in this was in May. And they did not meet with the community, and I've got all the documentation, until June 25th. Was the first opportunity that this neighborhood had a presentation on this project, June 25th. Then during August, when we're off session, I held with the neighborhood an emergency meeting. They don't typically meet in August, but they held an emergency meeting to review this for the second opportunity. And I think asking for city staff to have an additional opportunity to discuss this, given that this is all fairly new to these neighbors, is not unreasonable. Now, if you want to say that we're going to delay other projects, well, then I would say that we need city staff to be at the table from the day one, working with city council members and the community when it's community-related projects. And I hear all of you all say that's very critical to this process. And I'm asking you to uphold what you say and believe, that the community does have a voice and that they need to be listened to when we're spending public dollars. So I just simply ask you to support the continuance for 2 weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Agelasto. Any other comments? Mr. Blouse.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hear what everybody's saying. I'd just like to say that this has been going on for 4 years, these projects, and shaping them and getting them to where they are today. 2 extra weeks is not going to derail or eliminate any of these projects. And I think it's, if this was in one of my neighborhoods and this came at the last minute, I mean, I've only been on council for a few months, but one of the biggest themes since I got here was we're not taking any more last minute stuff. And this seems kind of last minute to me, to leave a neighborhood out of a decision so critical is, it's only fair to give them 2 more weeks. None of these projects are going to go away. And there's no guarantee that anything will change. But the leverage to listen to the neighborhood is out the window if we go ahead and pass the paper tonight and just say, please meet in the next 2 weeks, but you don't have to change anything if you don't want. So, just thought that was relevant.
Last call. Okay. It's not an easy decision. I mean, you've seen this year 2 papers that I've either patroned or co-patroned that have said that the administration has to provide us with information about leases or economic development deals within 72 hours of them starting and within 72 hours of them ending. You've also seen me patron a paper, or co-patron a paper, where we've said that when people are constantly shifted around in the administration as employees, we need to know if there's a major shift. This one is on a razor-thin line for me, and quite frankly, it's one that I could easily see going either way when the vote is finally tallied. However, I know Mr. Downey, I trust Mr. Downey, and I have faith in Mr. Downey. And if he says he's not going to encumber or spend the funds until they've gone out to the community, I believe him and I take him at his word. And this is how I'm making my decision to cast the vote here in favor of moving the paper forward tonight. Madam Clerk, would you please call the question?
Yes, we have a motion on the table made by Councilor Agelesto to continue the paper until October the 4th, which was seconded by Councilor Beliles. We'll need to vote that up or down. Mr. Beliles? Aye. Ms. Graziano?
No.
Ms. Mosby?
No.
Vice President Robertson?
No.
Mr. Agelesto?
Aye.
Mr. Hilbert?
No.
Ms. Trammell?
Aye.
Ms. Newbill? President Samuels?
No.
That motion has failed. That paper is before you.
Thank you.
You're now voting on item number 51, ordinance number 2013-153. Mr. Beliles? No. Ms. Graziano?
Aye.
Ms. Mosby?
Aye.
Vice President Robertson?
Aye.
Mr. Agelesto?
No.
Mr. Hilbert?
Aye.
Ms. Trammell?
No.
Ms. Newbill?
Aye.
President Samuels?
Aye.
That paper has been adopted.
That concludes the renewal of our regular agenda. I believe the next thing on our agenda would be the approval of minutes.
Yes, sir. The minutes to be approved are from the special meeting of Friday, July the 26th, 2013 at 1 p.m., the informal meeting of Monday, September the 9th, 2013, 3 p.m., and the formal meeting of Monday, September the 9th, 2013 at 6 p.m. I'll need a motion to approve those minutes. Councilmember Mosby, will you make that motion?
So moved, Madam Clerk.
Council is voting on Councilmember Mosby's motion to approve the minutes as presented. Mr. Beliles? Aye. Ms. Graziano?
Aye.
Ms. Mosby? Aye. Vice President Robertson?
Aye.
Mr. Agelesto?
Aye.
Mr. Hilbert?
Aye.
Ms. Trammell?
Aye.
Ms. Newbill?
Aye.
President Samuels?
Aye.
Those minutes have been adopted.
Reports and announcements. I'm just going to go straight through, starting with Mr. Beliles and around. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to call Ms. Trammell first.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had our public safety meeting last Monday, and I'd like to thank my colleagues for attending, Parker and Chris, and also my vice chair, Cynthia Newbell, and also Faye Smith was there to help me, and also Steve Taylor and Ron Hurst. We had a very good meeting. We had a discussion on the handicap parking. I know that in the city of Richmond, we have signs that tell us where we can park if you have a decal or if you have handicap stickers on your car. And then you can have, like if you go to the doctor, go to DMV and get a letter and all that, you can have a sign put in front of your home. It's a little bit of confusion about who can park there, so we're trying to iron out some differences with Major Collier spoke and also Major Scott Booth, and they're working on some different things about how everybody can be able to park in front of their home if they're a handicap. And Cynthia, did you want to add something with that? Okay. And then Travis Brodwell from Public Works was there with 2 police officers from CSX, and they were talking about these 3-wheelers, 4-wheelers, and all that riding on the railroad tracks because it is against the law to trespass on the railroad tracks. We need to see what we can do to have more enforcement and maybe more fines added, because it is very, very dangerous when you're up on those tracks. And if you got, earphones on or whatever, sometimes you don't hear the train, and, you're not going to survive if you're hit by a train. More than likely, you're not going to survive. But anyway, we thought maybe we would discuss this maybe with the General Assembly, also maybe with Ron Jordan, to see what we can do as far as to get more enforcement on being on the railroad tracks with 3-wheelers and all that. Also, this is your smoke alarm. If you call 646-1526, that's 646-1526, the firefighters will come to your house. They will put this smoke alarm up for you, or either they will install a battery, or you can go to your nearest fire station and they will make an appointment to come to your house to put the smoke alarm up. Also, I'd like to thank the fire chief who also attended our public safety meeting, and also Chip Decker was also in attendance, and I'd like to thank Henry Meese for all of his support. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Trammell. Mr. Beliles.
Thank you, Mr. President. One announcement. We have had to reschedule the town hall meeting originally scheduled for tomorrow night. Apologize for the inconvenience. Several different schedule conflicts and availability problems at the last minute, and it's what happens when you depend on outdated websites sometimes. But anyway, the new meeting will be Wednesday, October 2nd at 6 p.m. at Albert Hill Middle School. So town hall meeting Wednesday, October 2nd, Albert Hill. And I would just like to thank everybody that came out to the RVA Street Art Festival last weekend. It was an enormous success, and thank you to Ed Trask and GRTC and the team for helping me put that together and make it a success. We had a great group of people, and GRTC has obtained a liability, and the site is open daily from 8 to 4:30 for people to walk around and take a look at the murals if you were unable to attend. And I would highly recommend it. It's at the corner of West Carey Street and Robinson in the Fan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beliles. Ms. Graziano.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also only have one announcement, and that is that my district meeting is going to be next Tuesday, October 6th at 7 o'clock at St. Luke's. So we're going to have somebody there from Public Works, I believe, so I would hope people would come out and learn a little bit about the city. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Graziano. Mr. Hilbert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Excuse me. This past Saturday evening, I attended an event sponsored by the VCU Medical Center for a new resuscitation room that was pretty incredible. They now have enough bays to serve 13 people at once. A major trauma happens, a very large accident, a fire, a shooting, etc. You can count on VCU Medical Center to be prepared for that. It's a large expansion, and the amount of care and consideration that was put into that was really incredible. So I want people to know that that resource is available for them should the need arise. As we were given the tour, everyone said, "We hope you never have to see the inside of this room, but if you do, it's there." So I wanted to make the community aware of that. This day after tomorrow, Wednesday evening, September the 25th at 6 o'clock is the 3rd District meeting. It will be held at Pine Camp, which is next to Henderson Middle School on Old Brook Road, there just south of Azalea Avenue. We'll be receiving a presentation from the Virginia Treatment Center for Children, from the VCU Medical Facility staff, and the expansion or the proposed expansion of this Virginia Treatment Center for Children to the Richmond Children's Hospital campus located on Brook Road. We certainly ask that anyone interested in this development come out and express your opinions as to any impact on traffic or other considerations that you may have. We continue to have an increase in burglaries in the area around the 4th Precinct, particularly the Gunner Park, Bellevue, Hermitage Road areas. And so I would ask that everyone do your part. You know, when I'm sure you may have heard this as a child, you were told by your parents, only brush the teeth that you wish to keep. So I would say that for that, don't leave anything visible in your car that you would be disappointed in, that if it wasn't there the next morning. So I would hope that everyone would act accordingly with that. The police's job is hard enough without us not doing our part of leaving iPods, phones, your car unlocked, and valuable items in plain view. Theft from vehicles is a crime of convenience, and if someone walks by and is casing a street, sees that your car is that there's items in it, they're going to go for that versus taking their chances on a car where they're not seeing items there. Leave a porch light on for your home. Certainly go out and trim your bushes. Look at your yard. Ask the police to come out. They'll come out and look at your yard, make an assessment, indicate whether there's hideaway spots for folks, and make sure that your property is environmentally safe against break-ins. Certainly, we ask that, you know, the police are out there, as we saw earlier, of putting their life on the line, and we honored the officers that had died in the line of duty. They deserve our cooperation in trying to make our city as safe as it can be. So I would really ask everyone to get involved in your neighborhood watch, do these things that I've previously stated, and report any suspicious activity to the police as soon as you see it. I would also finally add that we have a district email blast which goes out a couple of times a week. If you'd like to be added to that list, please feel free to call Lisa Towns at 646-6055 or email her at lisa.towns, Townes, at richmondgov.com. Your email information will be kept confidential. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hilbert. Dr. Newbill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have one announcement. Just would like to let the public know that the next standing committee of the Governmental Operations Committee will be this Thursday, September 26th at 3 p.m. in the second floor large conference room here at City Hall. Again, Governmental Operations Committee meeting. The time is modified just a bit, so we will start at 3 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Newbill. Ms. Mosby.
I was still working, but I'm going to try to do what I can do with it. On Saturday, October 5th, myself and Dr. Newbill, Citizens Against Crime and the Baptist Ministers Conference are sponsoring a prayer at every Richmond public school in the city, all 49. And I know that you all in your own comfort zones, I'm asking the people, I'm asking you all to have a moment that day, even if you can't be there. I was going down a list, and in 2001 in Baltimore, Maryland, a student was shot. In 2001 in California, two were killed and 13 wounded. In 2001 in Pennsylvania, 14 students were wounded. In 2001 in California, 1 teacher, 3 students, and a police was shot. In 2001 in Indiana, 1 student was killed. In 2001 in New York, 2 students were wounded. 2002 in Germany, 13 teachers, 2 students, 1 police were killed, 10 were wounded. In 2002 in Bosnia, 1 teacher was killed, 1 student was wounded, a shooter kills himself. In 2002 in Arizona, 1 teacher was killed, 1 student was wounded, and a shooter kills himself. In 2002 in Arizona, 3 professors killed, shooter kills himself. In 2003 in New Orleans, 1 student killed, 3 students were wounded. In 2003 in Pennsylvania, the principal was killed. In 2003 in Minnesota, 2 students were killed. In 2004 in Argentina, 3 students killed, 6 wounded. In 2005 in Minnesota, 5 students, a teacher, and a security guard, and then the person killed himself. In 2005 in Tennessee, the assistant principal and 2 administrators were wounded. In 2006 in Vermont, 2 teachers shot, 1 died, 1 wounded. In 2006 in Canada, 18 died, and then the shooter killed himself. In 2006 in Colorado, 1 died, the shooter killed himself. In 2006 in Wisconsin, the school's principal was shot. In 2006 in Pennsylvania, 5 girls were shot, and then the shooter killed himself. In 2007 in Washington State, 1 boy was shot. In 2007 in Blacksburg, Virginia, 2 in a dorm were shot and 30 more. So a total of 33 people were killed on that day. Shooter shot himself. In 2007 in Delaware, 2 were shot. In 2007 in Cleveland, Ohio, 2 students, 2 teachers were shot, and then the shooter killed himself. In 2007 in Finland, 5 boys were shot, 2 girls, and a principal. Shooter killed himself. In 2008 in Louisiana, 2 women shot, shooter kills himself. 2008 in Tennessee, student shot, 1 wounded. 2008 in California, student shot, became brain dead. 2008 in Illinois, 5 students were shot, student killed himself, and 17 were wounded. 2008 in Finland, 9 students died, shooter killed himself. 2008 in Florida, student was killed. 2009 in Germany, 15 people shot and killed. 2009 in Baku, 12 students and a staff member killed. 2010 in Alabama, a student killed. 2010 in Alabama, 3 shot and died, 3 wounded. 2010 in Ohio, 2 employees and another employee wounded. 2011 in Nebraska, 2 people killed and 2 injured. These are all schools. 2011 in Texas, 1 student died, 5 injured. 2011 in Brazil, 12 students died and more than a dozen wounded. 2011 in Blacksburg, Virginia, the Virginia Tech police officer was shot. 2012 in New Hampshire, a student killed himself. In 2012 in California, 7 students died and several others wounded. And we can all remember that in 2012 in Newtown, Connecticut, 20 children were shot, total of 26 victims. I believe that we ought to be proactive. I don't know about you all, but I never want to get a phone call from any of my 5 elementary schools and 1 middle school that this is happening. That would break my heart. So I'm asking that if you cannot be there, please have a moment of silence on that day and pray for our young people. There's an article in the paper that says the state is trying to take over our schools. We need to be praying for our education of our young people. At the end of the day, they're going to be the people that will be sitting here in these seats making the decisions for us. It is time for us to do something. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mosby. Ms. Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple announcements I'd like to make. On tomorrow evening, Tuesday, September the 24th, there will be an open forum discussion on affordable housing in the city of Richmond. It will be held at the Richmond Time-Dispatch office on Franklin Street. The time of the meeting is from 6:30 to 8 o'clock. There will be 3 speakers that will provide detailed information about the value of increasing the availability of affordable housing throughout the Richmond communities. There will be a national speaker from the Center of Community Building, Mary Brooks, that will give us a national perspective of affordable housing trust funds, the sources of funds that are used to fund these trust funds, and the significance of the return on the investment to localities, cities, states that engage in building more affordable housing and doing it through the establishment and funding of affordable housing trust funds. That meeting will, as I said previously, will be at the Richmond Time-Dispatch office on Franklin Street. It will start at 6:30 to 8, and it will give residents of the city of Richmond an opportunity to give the advisory board recommendations that will be coming back to the city council and the mayor's office for programs, the types of funding sources, as well as what type of housing is needed. As been stated earlier today, one of the greatest demands that we have in the city of Richmond is providing affordable housing for families and individuals that earnings are between $20,000 and $35,000. Secondly, we have a huge volume, over 2,000 units of blighted vacant houses in the city of Richmond that is not generating any or minimum tax revenue, and certainly creating a lot of other costs to the city of Richmond for us to manage, maintain those vacant properties. And our statistics of crime in the community has shown that where there is blighted properties and vacant properties, there's a tendency for more crime. Residents who live in those communities also pay a higher property insurance and fire protection insurance, and we also have a higher level of fires in neighborhoods with blight. So we're encouraging all of the city residents, any stakeholders that are in the business of providing housing, the realtors community, the developer community, to come to this meeting, to make their voices heard, so that the advisory board can make a recommended public input decision as to how we deal with affordable housing in the city of Richmond. On September the 28th, which is Saturday, CAPUP will be having their annual community day, and their walk the title of their walk this year is to focus on a walk against poverty. That will originate at Oliver Hill Way at the CAPUP's headquarters office, and the walk will start at 7:30, and the community event will be at 9 o'clock till 1. On October the 12th, the 6th District will hold its regular town meeting. That meeting will be held at the Martin Luther King Middle School. We will have an opportunity for citizens to get a sneak preview of what the new middle school is going to offer, as well as an opportunity to share the more detailed information as to where we are with the redevelopment of the Justice Center. And there will be other special guests from our state legislators that will be talking about the upcoming General Assembly session. On October the 5th, there will be a walk in the Wickham Court Community Fight Sisters Network Breast Cancer Walk to give out information on breast cancer, and we're asking the community to be involved in that as well. As was mentioned earlier today, that as it relates to the return on the investment for the Redskin camp, there's been lots of questions that have been asked about that. The Greater Richmond Convention Bureau has been involved in doing a return on the investment analysis for the city. In regards to that, we expect to have that report in 60 days, and hopefully it will resolve some of the concerns and questions that we have as it relates to whether or not this was a wise investment and what is the actual return on that investment. On September the 26th, there's been lots of concerns this afternoon about safety and bicycling in the city of Richmond. There will be a meeting at the Science Museum from the hours of 5:30 to 8:30, where there will be a panel that will discuss the status of the infrastructure for biking in the city of Richmond, and we're inviting all of the residents of the city to put that on that calendar for September the 26th and attend that meeting. There's also been requests from my colleagues as where we are with our derelict housing paper that was introduced some time ago, and how do we move forward with addressing derelict properties. There's a full presentation that will be made to the organizational committee on October the 4th. So I'd ask my colleagues to put that on the calendar, please. And Second Street Festival is coming up on October the 5th and 6th on 2nd Street. This is their 25th year. There's always a big city event. I want to make sure that people are on there. And two other announcements, Mr. President. Sorry for the long list tonight. Our very own Dr. Cynthia Newbill will be recognized by Liz Thursday afternoon at the Maymont Center from 5:30 to 7 as they celebrate community leaders. And so I want to congratulate Dr. Newbill and also encourage us to attend that event if that's possible. And lastly, on October the 10th, we will be having our grand opening of the new Dove Court community, which is now Holland Grove. Phase 1 and Phase 2 is almost complete. There will be tours of the units that are available there, as well as a viewing of the master plan for the entire build-out of the community, which includes also a new school and the continual building out of the Cannon Creek Greenway and a community center with single-family mixed-income housing. And that will be October the 10th at 1:30 at the site. Thank you very much.
Mr. Agelasto.
Thank you. I just want to make a pledge to Councilwoman Mosby that I heard you loud and clear. Very important, and I appreciate your going through a decade's worth of shootings in schools. It's powerful to listen to that long list. So you've got my commitment. I'd like to go through some announcements, but before I do that, I just want to tell the people of Richmond how committed their city council members actually are. I mean, it's 9 o'clock at night. We're here. There's a handful of the public and some reporters and not one person from the administration, but we're all working, so very good. Couple of announcements to make here. The 5th District has numerous civic associations that will be meeting in the next 2 weeks. Beginning tomorrow night, we've got the Woodland Heights Civic Association that will be at 7 p.m. at the Woodland Heights Baptist Church. They will likely be talking about tonight's vote and the discussion of West 24th Street in Perry, and there probably will just be an update and not much more from our economic and community development staff. Also tomorrow evening, the Oregon Hill Neighborhood Association will be meeting at 7 p.m. at the William Byrd Community House, and they will be talking about other issues, primarily the impact of the Tredegar Green Amphitheater proposal, and if that comes before City Council for rezoning. Currently, it's permitted under 4 temporary events per year. On Thursday of this week, September the 26th, Carytown Feeds the Bird is going to be kind of a really neat event that they're going to have at the Bird Theater. It's a fundraiser, and all of Carytown Merchants Association gets behind it. So I encourage you to help raise some money to preserve the Bird Theater in Carytown. It's a fun event. On Saturday of this week, we will be hosting the 5th District team during the Richmond Heart Walk at Browns Island to help raise funds and awareness of heart disease. And we invite anybody to come join us. That is at 9 a.m. out at Browns Island. And I will be there, and Ida Jones, our liaison, has worked hard to coordinate this. So thank you, Ida, for working to coordinate our Heart Walk. Also this Saturday, the Carillon Civic Association is hosting a neighborhood yard sale. They do this a couple times a year. They get lots of people to say that they're going to join into the yard sale so that they can advertise in the Times-Dispatch. And that's going to be over in the Carillon Civic neighborhood. So I encourage people, if they're interested in yard sales, to go over to visit them. On Monday, October 1st, the Randolph Community Group will be meeting at 6 p.m. at the Randolph Community Center. We will be having Lynn Lancaster from the city's parking division make a presentation on restricted parking districts. Randolph has really had some frustrating moments in the last few years with a number of students and commuters parking in their neighborhoods. And they're pursuing, or at least discussing, the possibility of a restricted parking district akin to what the Fan and Carver have. Jackson Ward is currently pursuing, and Oregon Hill has also had a briefing on restricted parking districts. So tomorrow, or on October the 1st at 6 p.m., that will be at the Randolph Community Center. And RRHA will also be there to give a brief presentation. Also October 1st, the Uptown Civic Association will be meeting. That's at 6 p.m., and they will hold their meeting this month at F.W. Sullivan's, which is located at 2401 West Main Street. The Bird Park Civic Association will be meeting on Saturday, October the 5th, from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., and they meet at the Bird Park Roundhouse. And I wanted to just kind of go through those civic association meetings and remind people of the importance of getting engaged. The communication, what we need from our neighborhoods is to have good communication, to be neighbors, to go to the table together, to talk through what they might have as issues in the neighborhood. It's better for the neighborhood to find those issues of common ground than to have individual neighbors calling council members or calling the police or calling different participants when it's an issue. I think it's great if we can get people to the table together and find resolution before it gets into a bigger situation. So I highly encourage you. I think a good example of where civic associations have a role is when it comes to special use permits, and when it comes to zoning and land use issues, and when it comes to things that come before city council, the city staff engage the civic associations. They submit letters. They ask for opinions when it's something that falls within those boundaries. And so I highly encourage you to get involved and to have your voice heard at that venue, because it will certainly be heard here, but I think if you can get more engaged in your immediate neighborhood, that would be wonderful. On a final note, I'd like to just take a moment. On October the 4th, Swansboro Elementary School will celebrate its 100th anniversary. This is yet another one of our schools that is marking its centenary. And Swansboro is a wonderful school. It's got a great principal, Mizell, and the students are certainly wonderful achievers. Every single student at Swansboro learns to swim, and I think that's commendable. So they're going to be turning 100, but that does remind us on City Council the need to upgrade and improve the infrastructure of our public education when we've got schools that are 100 years old. So I think we will continue to have that conversation at council, but also with our school board. Finally, I said that was finally, but this body will convene again next Monday, September 30th. we will be having our retreat, and I look forward to the opportunity to have a conversation with all of you without the business of City Council as a formal meeting. So I look forward to that, and thank you, Lou Ali, for all of your work in organizing that.
Thank you, Mr. Agelasto. Tomorrow in the 2nd District, the Robinson Street Association will meet at 6 p.m. at Retreat Doctors Hospital. The Carver Area Civic Improvement League will be meeting at 7. On the 26th of September, the Scotts Addition Business Association Community Engagement Charrette will occur. That's going to be at 2818 West Broad Street. September 30th, the Fan District Association meets at 7 p.m. And like my good friends near me here reminded us, the 2nd Street Festival is the weekend of October 5th. And don't forget the Folk Festival, October 11th through 13th. Madam, and organizational development is on October 7th. A council person had suggested it was on the 4th. That is not accurate. Madam Clerk, would you be so kind as to read the papers that are ready for introduction?
Yes, sir. Ordinance number 2013-206 to amend and reordain City Code Section 26457 concerning the hours the Nina F. Abadi Festival Park is open to the public, changing the hours to sunrise to sunset each day of the year. Land Use, Housing, and Transportation, October 22nd at 3 p.m. Council public hearing, October 28th. Ordinance 2013-207 to amend and reordain City Code Section 2-221 concerning requests by the City Auditor for audits and projects for the purpose of setting the process. City Council may require an audit or project be removed from the City Auditor work plan and canceled. Government Operations, September 26 at 3 p.m. Council public hearing, October 14. Ordinance 2013-208 to amend Ordinance number 2013-156-154, which authorized the special use of 2501 Monument Avenue for the purpose of a museum for architecture and design and a lodging unit, to impose a condition of a 150-person attendance limit for all reception events. Planning Commission's October 21, 1:30 p.m. Council public hearing, October 28th. Ordinance 2013-209 to authorize the CAO to accept $250,000 from VCU and to appropriate the increase to fiscal year 13-14 capital budget by increasing estimated revenues and the amount appropriated to the Department of Public Works Traffic Calming Idlewood Roundabout Project in the transportation category by $250,000 for the construction of a roundabout at the intersection of Idlewood Avenue, Grayland Avenue, and an off-ramp from the downtown expressway. Planning Commission, October 7 at 1:30. Council public hearing, October 14. Ordinance 2013-210 to authorize the Council Chief of Staff on behalf of the City of Richmond to execute a license agreement number 5174 between the City of Richmond and Global Spectrum LP for the purpose of licensing space within the Greater Richmond Convention Center for the Richmond City Council Senior Resource Fair event on October 31. Government Operations, September 26 at 3 p.m. Council public hearing, October 14. Resolution 2013-R188 to approve an expenditure of $2,500 from the Council District Funds for the 7th District to support the Greater Fulton's future community vision and agreement. Council public hearing, October 14, 2013. Resolution 2013-R189 to support funding for the Floyd Avenue Bicycle Boulevard project through VDOT for $400,000 from the Federal Transportation Alternatives Program. Land Use, Housing, and Transportation, October 22, 3 p.m. Council public hearing, October 28. Resolution 2013-R190 to reappoint Warren Andolfer as a member of the Advisory Board for the assessment of towing fees and the storage of vehicles, representative of the Police Department. Council public hearing, October 14th. Resolution 2013-R191 to appoint Raymond M. Brinkman as a member of the Audit Committee, member of the business community of the city, succeeding Joseph R. Jenkins. Council public hearing, October 14. Resolution 2013-R192 to reappoint Helen R. Pinckney as a member of the Board of Directors of Lewis Ginter Botanical Garden, Inc., Council public hearing, October 14. Resolution 2013 R193 to reappoint Martha F. Moore as a member of the Board of Directors of Lewis Ginter Botanical Garden, Inc. Council public hearing, October 14, 2013. Resolution 2013 R194 to reappoint David E. Cheek, Sr. as a member of the Community Criminal Justice Board, General District Court Judge Representative. Council public hearing, October 14. Resolution 2013 R195 to reappoint Todd M. Phillips as an alternate member of the Citizens Transportation Advisory Committee to the Metropolitan Planning Organization. Council public hearing, October 14. Resolution 2013 R196 to appoint Sherry Johnson as a member of the Clean City Commission, Corporate Citizen Volunteer. Council public hearing, October 14. Resolution 2013 R197 to appoint Donald Moss as a member of the Clean City Commission 6th District Representative, succeeding Jeannie Boisonneau. Council public hearing, October 14. Resolution 2013 R198 to appoint Catherine E. Nixon as a member of the Sister Cities Commission, succeeding Leonard S. Mick. Council public hearing, October 14th. Resolution 2013 R199 to appoint Suzanne L. Schilling as a member of the Sister Cities Commission, succeeding Scotty R. Sibley. Council public hearing, October the 14th. Resolution 2013 R200 to appoint Cassandra Shaw as a member of the Social Services Advisory Board, succeeding Tori J. Edmonds. Council public hearing, October the 14th. Resolution 2013 R201 to provide for the nomination of George Braxton, Reginald Gordon, and James Johnson as the City of Richmond's 3 directors and the election of the Board of Directors of the GRTC for the period commencing upon election and qualification of these nominees as directors. Council public hearing, October 14th. Resolution 2013 R202 to reverse the decision of the Commission of Architectural Review which denied a certificate of appropriateness for replacement dormer windows on a house located at 2200 Monument Avenue. Council public hearing, October 14th. Resolution 2013 R203 to approve an expenditure of $1,696 from the Council District Funds for the 9th District with the cost associated with the Richmond City Council Senior Resource Fair. Council public hearing, October 14. Mr. President, this concludes all the new legislation.
Ladies and gentlemen, since there is no other business to cancel tonight, this meeting is adjourned. Good night. Go straight home.
Okay, a little less than 3 hours tonight. If you were tuned in earlier, we got a late start tonight because of the fact that we had, well, the fire alarms all went off, and they beeped, and we all had to vacate the property and go across the street and wait until they checked everything out. We don't know exactly what happened. I have heard rumors that had something to do with the new sprinkler system they're putting in, but we don't know for sure. All we know is we did not have a fire. At least in City Council chambers, as far as we know, there was no fire, but we'll find out more about that in the days to come. Okay, here's what happened tonight. We got started at 6:25, and they gave the emergency evacuation announcement. We'd already been through that, but they have to do that at each meeting. We got to appointments, then the awards and presentations, agenda review, and amendments. Then we got to the regular agenda at 6:50. Now, there was only one paper left, and this was reappropriating unexpended funds of roughly $1.2 million from community development block grants for various projects. Now, the one big sticking point was the Swansboro project seemed to have drawn objections. Councilman also moved to table the paper until later in that meeting, so he had a chance to talk with city administration. So then we went on the citizens' comment period and the consent agenda. That took about 40 minutes before that was approved unanimously. Then about 8:10, we got back to the unexpended funds paper. Basically, what happened, the city had said they would not allow funds for the Swansboro project until they had a chance to meet with more of the people there, the civic leagues, etc. So as a result, Councilman Angelesto moved for a continuance of the entire paper until the 14th of October, which is our next meeting. Well, that failed by a 6-3 vote. So the paper came back in its original form, but the there is the promise from the city they will not allow funds or not provide funds for the Swansboro project until they have met with the folks involved there at the various developments. And that one then passed by a 6-3 vote. Now, the 3 voting in favor of the continuance of the entire paper were the 3 that voted against the original paper, Councilmembers Belials, Hydrolasto, and Trammell. But 6-3, it passed. Then we got to approval of minutes, reports and announcements, introduction of papers, and now we are adjourned until the 14th of October, which, by a quirk of the calendar, happens a few times a year, will be 3 weeks from tonight. So we'll look forward to seeing you in 3 weeks on the 14th of October. And for Gavel to Gavel, I'm Dick Harmon saying good night.